Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the recess meeting of the Will County Board for November 17th. We will call this meeting to order. If we will all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, County Board Member Don Gould will lead us in the pledge this morning and then introduce our clergy.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't know if Father Joe is here from St. Joe's. Father, are you here today? All right, then I'd kindly ask Pastor Brooks to go to the invocation.
Thank you, Don. I don't mind being the second runner-up.
You've done it before.
Thank you. Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, our Creator, our Maker, we come this morning to ask your blessings upon this Will County Board. For your word records in Isaiah 9 and verse number 6, a child will be born and the government shall be upon his shoulders. It is that government we're lifting up to you on this morning. Lord, bless our executive, our chairman, every commissioner, employee, and everyone that make up the great county of Will. Bless this meeting, Lord, that we do your will and do your work. In our Lord and Savior, Creator's name, we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Brooks, we need a home run. We call it the pinch hitter.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Bellotta? Yes. Adamick? Deutsch? Howard? Here. Singer? Here. Weigel? Here. Drayle? Here. Hart? Here. McPhillips? Here. Custa? Here. Mayor? Here. Trainier? Here. Argadelis? Here. Goodson? Here. Smith? Here. Gould? Here. May? Here. Rozak? Here. Konecki? Here. Zagrosi? Here. Brooks? Here. Stewart? Here. Winfrey? Here. Babbage? Here. Wilhelmy? Here. And Mustis. Here. Thank you.
25 members present, 1 absent.
25 members present. Quorum is present. Has been established. Entertain a motion to place on file the certificate of publication. Moved by Mr. Babbage, second by Ms. Trainier. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Sure. Bellotta?
Wait a minute. Please. If we can have, so Nancy can call the roll.
Bellotta? Adamick? Howard? Singer? Weigel? Drayle? Hart? McPhillips? Custa? Mayor? Trainier? Argadelis? Goodson? Smith? Gould? May? Rozak? Konecki? Zagrosi? Brooks? Stewart? Winfrey? Babbage? Wilhelmy? And Mustis. Thank you.
24 affirmative.
24 affirmative. Motion is carried. Entertain a motion to approve the appointment of Dave Izzo to the Will County Board District 2 vacancy. Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Weigel. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? No, that's to be seated.
I'm sorry.
Let's make do the
Well, okay. Bellotta? Adamick? Howard? Singer? Weigel? Drayle? Hart? McPhillips? Custa? Mayor? Trainier? Argadelis? Goodson? Smith? Gould? May? Rozak? Konecki? Zagrosi? Brooks? Stewart? Winfrey? Babbage? Wilhelmy? And Mustis. Thank you.
25 affirmative.
25 affirmative. Motion has carried. Would Mr. David Izzo please come forward?
No.
Nancy.
I'm happy to swear you in. Congratulations. Okay, all you have to do is raise your right hand and repeat after me. After I say I, state your name. I
David Izzo. I, David Izzo,
have been appointed
have been appointed
to the office of the County Board Member
to the office of County Board Member
and Commissioner of the Forest Preserve District
and Commissioner of the Forest Preserve District
for the County of Will
for the County of Will
in the State of
in
Illinois,
the State of Illinois,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United
that
States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office
of the office
of the County Board Member
of the County Board Member
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Would you like to just sign your name here? Want to say a few words?
Just briefly. First of all, I want to thank the Richard Kavanaugh, the Will County Central Committeeman, for appointing me to this position. I also want to thank James Moustis as well. Mr. Walsh and County Board members, I really look forward to the opportunity of working with each and every one of you. As we all know, these are very tough economic times. I think it's imperative for all of us to work together in such a way that we can create an environment here in Will County to not only attract new business, but to retain business as well. So I look forward to representing the District 2 members and working with all of you. Thank you very much.
Entertain a motion to seat newly appointed County Board Member David Izzo. Moved by Mr. Argadelis, second by Mr. Gould. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Brooks, second by Ms. Trenier. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried. Next on our agenda is I need a motion, entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the Will County Board October 20th, 2011 board meeting. Moved by Ms. Denise Winfrey, second by Mr. Wilhelmy. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Gould, second by Ms. Rozak. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried. Madam Clerk, would you please acknowledge our elected officials and the media that is present this morning?
Would you ask if would like to be yes on the last one?
Yes. Dave, would you like to be a yes on that last motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
Elected officials, we have Auditor Duffy Blackburn, Circuit Clerk Pam McGuire, County Clerk Nancy Schultz-Boots, our County Executive Larry Walsh, Recorder of Deeds Karen A. Stuckel, our Sheriff Paul Kopis, and our State's Attorney James Glasgow. Media, we have John Seidel from Sun-Times Media and Alice Fabry from Chicago Tribune.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have citizens to be heard. We have some citizens signed up in an appropriate time. They will be given the opportunity. Today we have a presentation of the 2012 program and budget from the RTA, and who is going to make the announcement? JD?
Thank you, Mr. Executive. Actually, the presentation is going to be made by our Deputy Executive Director and Chief Financial Officer, Grace Gallucci.
If you both state your name and address for the clerk.
J.D. Ross, 119 Inwood Drive, Joliet.
Thank you.
Grace Gallucci, 1616 Arlington Street, Bolingbrook.
Thank you.
Good morning. And as Director Ross stated, I'm Grace Gallucci, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the RTA. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to talk to you today about the financial situation of public transit in our region. As 2011 comes to an end, the service boards, the CTA, Metra, and PACE, are on track to end the year with balanced budget. 2011 has been marked by several positive financial performance indicators. Sales tax revenues have come in stronger than expected. After 2 years of decline, ridership has stabilized and is estimated to be approximately 1% ahead of last year on a regional basis. In addition, there were no fare increases or service cuts in 2011. However, the service boards did each need to transfer capital funding to the operating budget, a practice that has weakened our ability to maintain and repair our extensive capital infrastructure. With regard to the development of the 2012 operating budget, challenges continue, and the service boards have had to face some very difficult decisions. Although sales tax receipts have been coming in better than budgeted in 2011, sales tax revenue remains significantly below the levels anticipated when the new RTA funding and reform legislation was passed in early 2008. In addition, the City of Chicago real estate transfer tax, a funding source designated just for the CTA, has been more depressed than the regional sales tax. The economy is still struggling after the 2008 downturn, and budget balancing measures that have included one-time savings will no longer solve the shortfall in public funding that the service boards are confronted with. Fare increases were implemented at the CTA and PACE in 2009 and service cuts in 2010. In addition, as mentioned, the service boards have relied on capital transfers to operations, a practice that is really no longer sustainable. I'm pleased to report that the 2012 budgets for each of the service boards do not include any transfers of capital funds to the operating budget. To balance the 2012 budgets, however, Metra has approved a 25% fare increase, and CTA is proposing work rule changes through negotiations with its unions that will result in more efficient operations. PACE Suburban Service has been able to develop a balanced budget based on previous restructuring and reductions in fixed route service and a 2009 fare increase. PACE ADA Service has benefited from the passage of new legislation in 2011 that amended the RTA Act to reestablish the ADA fund at a level that is sufficient to cover all operating costs. The 5-year RTA capital program emphasizes bringing the system into a state of good repair. For the 5-year period of 2012 to 2016, $3.87 billion of funding is budgeted, with the largest sources still federal funding at 41% and state funding at 26%. In the state capital program, 38% of the funding will be dedicated to rolling stock projects and 31% to track and structures projects. These are two areas that are considered to have the greatest direct impact on transit users. As we struggle to deal with budget shortfalls, it's important to retain our focus on customers and their needs. The RTA has worked to develop coordination among the public transit services in the region that have optimized capital investments, increasing operational efficiencies, and enhancing customers' experience. We've partnered with the service boards, CTA, Metra, and PACE on a variety of initiatives that have required collaborative efforts. In cooperation with those service boards, we have advanced the development of a regional asset condition assessment that documents the funding needed to bring our infrastructure into a state of good repair over the next 10 years. That amount, however, is $24.6 billion, and unfortunately, the funding over that same time period is roughly 1/3 of the need. With funding from the federal government, we're developing a capital prioritization tool to assist us in the development of a capital program that will be focused on strategic capital investments. Thus, although we are looking at a $25 billion capital need as compared to about an $8 billion revenue flow, we are looking at the best ways to optimize and leverage those funds for the projects that we need most. We're working with the service boards, for example, to enhance customer experience through the implementation of a 5-year project for traffic corridor optimization. We have improvements in transit technology that can provide riders with regional real-time travel information and trip planning. And we are programming improved signage in downtown locations to help customers navigate the transition between commuter rail and urban transit services. Also, the development of a regional open fare payment system is underway that will make the system easier to access for both our regular and occasional users of the system. Currently, We're also implementing a region-wide customer satisfaction survey that will assist in the development of action plans that respond to customers' priorities. The RTA and the service boards remain committed to provide our customers with the best service possible. On behalf of the RTA, I'd like to thank you for your continued support of public transit in northeastern Illinois. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Any questions? Any questions from any board members? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Do you go out to bid for the ADA services with the different taxis? Because I see that you're going to try to freeze, you're working with them to try to freeze the rates for your ADA services. Do you take that out to bid? And is it, am I reading this correctly, is it strictly restricted to the city of Chicago in those services?
I'll answer very briefly, but actually PACE is the operator of that service, and they're making the next presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. But generally speaking, yes, all of our service. All of our services
I
are.
really apologize. It's been
No, not at all. It's very confusing. And one of the reasons, actually, we're trying to conduct our public hearings jointly is to help the public to understand how the systems work together. The RTA is the oversight agency of public transit in northeastern Illinois. So we are responsible for funding, financing, planning, coordination, and general oversight. The service boards, CTA, Metra, and PACE, are responsible for the actual operation of the service. They also set the fares. They develop their budgets, but we are responsible for approving their budgets and allocating that funding.
And so when, to that point then, are you also responsible for oversight in their bidding on these processes?
Generally, the answer would be yes. At an oversight level, we have, for example, audit responsibility, and we do regularly go into the service boards to audit various policies, procedures.
So my question was accurate then in asking about the bidding process.
Yes.
For this.
Correct.
And I'll reflect the other question to them. So
yes.
The bidding process, are they going out to bid for these ADA services? Because I understand that they're looking to freeze them.
They have gone out to bid in the past. Typically, we do bid out all of our services. My understanding to that point is they are looking for an extension to the existing contract and trying to negotiate some concession from the vendors to lower the overall cost. But as I said, I'll let Pace answer the specifics to that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, J.D. J.D., as our representative to the RTA board, would you like to make any comments?
Just one. As you know, we started Bus on Shoulder this Monday, and it's been, I think, very, very successful already. We had a nice piece on Channel 7 that highlighted it. Pace has done a fantastic job with this. They have Wi-Fi on those buses. I used it when I took a trial run. It works, and I think we're just off to a great start. So, tip my hat to Chairman Kwasniewski and the people at Pace. They've done a great job. As I mentioned before, we had outstanding support from the Illinois State Police and also from the Illinois Department of Transportation in working with us to make all of this happen. And then yesterday at our board meeting, and I don't remember the exact dollar amount, but we did approve the paratransit program that had been submitted by Nick and his staff, and I think it was to a tune of about $800,000, including the local match.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for J.D.? Thank you very much. Oh, Bob Howard.
I'd just like to compliment Pace on what they're doing. I mean, it makes a big difference in a lot of people's lives, and especially when you get into the semi-rural areas to provide transportation and to partner with Pace to provide transportation. It's phenomenal. I can't say enough good things about it, so thanks again.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Next, with their presentation of 2012 programs and budgets, Pace, and we have the chairman of the board, Rick Kwasniewski, and Rocky Donahue, both with us today. Gentlemen.
Good morning. You need my name for the record, too? Okay. You have it? Oh, okay. Richard Kwasniewski, 9 West Logan Street, Lamont, Illinois.
Good morning. Rocky Donahue, 9441 Georgetown Square, Orland Park, Illinois.
Thank you very much for giving us an opportunity. I think the RTA started off on a few of our things that we've been working on collectively with them and with the other transit boards. So we're very happy here today to present to you our 2012 suburban service budget, which is a balanced budget with no service reductions and no increases in fees. So we were able to do that over the past couple of years. As the RTA said, we changed and restructured some service throughout the region and also cut back on a lot of administrative fees and so forth and structures and expenses that we have at PACE. Our budget this year is $195 million overall for PACE Suburban Bus. For the ADA budget, the overall budget is $115 million. We are continuing to make some efficiencies within that program, and that's an ongoing basis. And Rocky will be able to address Board Member Maher's question in a minute. Our capital budget is $100 million this year. We're going to be replacing a lot of rolling stock, doing some improvements to our facilities. We have brought in a number of hybrid vehicles to the area. We're also looking at possibly converting at some point to natural gas buses, which have been successful throughout the country. And it's a huge investment, so we're really taking our time and really looking at that closely. In 2009, we launched what we call the first call-in ride, ironically, right here in Will County in Joliet. And basically, it's a localized service where you pick up the phone and call and say, I want to go here. And they basically come and pick you up. You actually call the driver. They actually take you where you want to go, connect you into a fixed route. And it's hugely successful, and quite frankly, it's a model that we're using throughout the region now in about 4 other counties. And it's got started here in Will County. Our ridership continues to go up. It's up 11.3% this year. We carry about 3 million riders a month. Our ADA services in the suburban area, we carry about 58,000 riderships a month. And then our Dial Ride service, which is a cooperative that obviously we work with townships and municipalities, carries about 106,000 riders a month as well. We are currently working with the municipalities along the Heritage Corridor and the county to try to figure out if there's some service that we can provide in between in the middle of day where people could be able to get back to their cars and be able to, from downtown. One of the complaints that we've seen and Metra has seen is that because of the limited service on the Heritage line, that it's very difficult for people to be able to plan. Quite frankly, if they get stuck downtown, they've got to take another train somewhere else. So we're trying to figure out if there's some opportunity to work along with Metra and the municipalities to be able to provide some midday service and then some late night service as well to be able to accommodate riders. We're also working with Will County and various social service agencies on our overall Dial-A-Ride program, trying to put together some, I guess, consolidation, if you will, to be able to save costs. We were able to do that in a number of townships, and it's been successful, but we're looking to try to do that in a wider range of Will County as well. That's been successful in some other counties, and we're really looking forward to working along with all of you. Both Chairman Mustis and County Executive Walsh have really shown their leadership on this issue, especially with paratransit. We really appreciate that. We appreciate Nick Palmer's efforts and working to get that grant with the RTA. I think that's going to be a huge step for paratransit in Will County. And lastly, obviously, J.D. Ross did mention we launched Bus on Shoulders on Interstate 55 this past week. We had an event last week with the governor downtown. Board Member Trenier was able to ride on the bus ride along on the way down there, and it's an exciting opportunity for all of us, and we're hoping to expand that, quite frankly, on some of the other expressways if this works. This is a 2-year pilot program, so we're really monitoring it closely. We're also working with the Illinois Tollway on their future expansion and some opportunity for bus-only lanes, and really be more proactive in trying to do this bus rapid transit. So with that, I think if I could, maybe just flip it over to Rocky to be able to answer your question, and then we can open it up to other questions. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Rick. Good morning. As it relates to bidding of our ADA contract, all of our ADA service is privatized. We use private operators. The current contract doesn't expire until December 31st, 2012. What we have proposed, so we'll put it out for bid probably in June or July of 2012 to go into effect the new contract January 1 of 2013. What we have proposed in our 2012 budget, and the current contractors have agreed, is they were due for a minimal increase, an automatic step up. We have negotiated to hold their price steady at the 2011 contract rate in order to meet the budget, and they recognized with the tough economic times it was an unreasonable request. So that's what we've done. But we will put those out for bid, but it won't come up until a year from now.
Any other questions for, yes, Ms. Trenier?
Rick, Rocky, I just wanted to say thanks. Awesome service. I rode the bus fairly regularly for a number of years, about maybe 8 years ago, and really, really appreciate the enhanced service level with the Wi-Fi. That was really awesome, and it's a great way to make use of time in traffic.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Hart.
Kind of wondered this. When you were saying with the townships of having, I know seniors, because I know going in Bolingbrook and other areas of having it, and our township does not. How does that work? Like, do you work with the townships, or?
Yeah, which township are you in again?
I'm in Wheatland.
Okay, I think we were talking with the township supervisor about trying to provide some service there, and we gave them a lot of information, and I'm not sure if they were moving forward with it. Basically, what we do is provide the vehicle and some training for their driver, and there's a fee that would be paid, so it depends on how much service they really want. But I know we've been in contact with your township supervisor. His name's escaping me. What is it?
Todd Morris.
Todd, yes. And Beth Gonzalez is here. She's our representative for Will County, so I'll make sure she follows up with him to see if there's anything outstanding. But I know within the past year and a half, we've been having ongoing discussions with him in regards to that. So I don't know if it's a budget issue on their end or not.
And that's what I was wondering of how that was all explained with the bus and the whole thing. I just have had of going out and getting out, talking with my constituents, with my seniors and others with disability has asked.
Absolutely, and
I'll
make sure that Beth gets you a packet on the dial-a-ride service and how that works as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Mustis.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't have a question, Rick, for you or Rocky. I would just like to probably just make a comment. As a Will County, we have been looking at this issue of mobility, and specifically for folks that have special needs. You mentioned Wheatland, Suzanne. What I found, there's a lot of ways to deliver service, and everyone should understand and talk to PACE and talk about the different models. Some townships are operators, such as Frankfort Township. We operate our system. Other townships, for example, can sponsor. Some we also do the operation. They help they do a subsidy to the rides. And I do think that, and it's certainly working with Nick and the county executive, along with a pretty large group of folks that have an interest in transportation, public transportation, specifically for those who have special needs. It is a real challenge. I mean, we've talked about, for example, here at the county, maybe we could bring on a mobility manager to get help coordinate. By the way, I'm thinking as we look for a transportation person, it would be nice if we can get somebody who's can be helpful in also public transportation. I know we'll be executive will be looking for someone to fill those shoes during the year. So I guess what I'm trying to point out is there's a lot of different ways to bring transportation to your area, and I think it would be helpful, Rick and Rocky, if we can get more information out to potential either providers or people who want to sponsor their area by giving some dollars to the provider to help service their area, which is actually the least expensive way to do it, by the way. So there's a lot of ways to bring transportation, I guess is what I'm saying. We're working on it. We are going to get an additional grant from the RTA to allow us to further study the issue. But I do think PACE is doing a pretty good job. By the way, Frankfort Township is one of those townships who recently has consolidated, who has gone to a regional call center, which means it saved us about $60,000 in operational cost. So we are looking for other efficiencies in the system that I think Rick and Rocky, you've been very active in trying to bring to operators, current operators, how to be more efficient. We need to continue to do that because public transportation is not inexpensive, but for many there is no alternative. So, and that is PACE's charge, is to do paratransit, really. For those folks who don't understand that, PACE is the paratransit arm of the RTA, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so.
City and suburbs.
City and suburbs, yes. Well, not, yeah, city. Well, you just recently got the city back, what, 3 years ago or so?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
So. That concludes my comments, Mr. Executive. Thank you. Mr. Executive, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
There was a second part of the question about the dollar usage for the ADA. Seemed like the bulk of that is used for taxis for the city of Chicago. Is that, and kind of to some of the points that we've just been talking about, are those dollars also available for a township like Wheatland, rather than them get into the bus aspect and hire drivers to do subsidies for the taxi drivers?
That's a great question, and I'll try to explain this the best I can. There are really two types of service as it relates to the what we'll call paratransit, door-to-door service for the disabled. ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, is federal law where anywhere there is fixed route public transit, federal law says we have to provide basically curb-to-curb service for those individuals with the qualifying disability. Dial-a-ride service is where we have service with our local partners that necessarily fixed route service doesn't exist, therefore the ADA service doesn't exist, but these local partners decide they would like to have mobility management for their seniors or disabled or general public even, depending on how they so do it. So in the city of Chicago, that ADA service is federally required service. In Wheatland Township, and I apologize, I don't know the area well enough, but I will look, there may be ADA service if there's regular fixed route PACE service, but if there isn't a fixed route bus service, there would not be the corresponding ADA service. And so in that small section, there would be the corresponding ADA service. So that would be available to those residents who live within the corridor of the fixed route service. But the remainder of the service we would have to go to is, as Board Member Mustis has described, some type of partnership of enhancing that transportation for those residents.
And therefore, just to reiterate, the Chicago, because of the number of fixed routes they have, they pretty much geographically have it covered just because of their fixed routes.
Exactly. To put in perspective, in the city of Chicago, we provide 7,000 trips a day on the ADA service.
Any other comments for our, Ms. Zagrosi?
Question for you with regard to the PACE door-to-door. Currently, the qualifiers, as far as when an individual with a disability has to go to get approved to be a part of the service. Has there been any other discussion as far as bringing that more into central Will County? Right now, I know our residents that do have disabilities have to travel to Naperville.
That I actually will defer to the RTA. I don't know if they're still here. The RTA does the certification. The RTA certifies, in essence, how ADA works is an individual has to be certified that they cannot access the mainline system. RTA determines that certification, and then once they're on that list, we then provide the service. So where RTA does that certification is really their decision.
I will say it's very cumbersome for our individuals that do live in Will County.
Something we can look into, Rick?
Yeah, I think we can communicate with the JD's still here, so we'll get with
Yeah.
him and see exactly if there's some opportunity to do
Here
something.
here.
Grace is.
It is difficult, by the way. It is difficult.
Yes, as Rocky stated, the RTA is responsible for the certification process, and at this point, we have 5 different centers where the individuals can go to be tested. They can fill out their paperwork at a number of different places and even send it in, schedule an appointment. The RTA will work with PACE to have a transportation appointment for them and then brought in. So there are 5 different locations throughout the 6-county region.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. For our particular residents in Will County, the closest qualifying place is Naperville, which makes it extremely cumbersome.
We can certainly bring that back to the ADA staff who are responsible for planning those sites.
Thank you. Mr. Mustis?
I just want to say I agree because I've helped people through the process. It does seem to be more difficult than it needs to be. The mere fact, for example, and of course it's not the only one, but if you wanted to look at Will County, certainly Naperville is not a place you can get to easily with public transportation, for example. I don't know why so I do think location is important. A lot of courses done over the telephone. But even then, I just have to tell you, we have not had good experiences trying to get those certifications. It gets frustrating where people just say, forget it. So I think it is an area that can be improved on. That's just a comment.
No, I appreciate the feedback. To let you know that we do regularly review our services. We did conduct this past year an evaluation of the ADA paratransit certification process within the agency. So we've looked at the processes that we go through to ensure that these certifications are accurate. Perhaps we should take that a step further then and maybe involve some of the folks in the communities to determine how it's working for them.
Mr. Mayor?
Are you all not working with the Department of Rehab Services in order to be able to help validate? I mean, we already have an agency here within the state of Illinois that already goes through a certification process for people with disabilities. It would seem ludicrous for us not to work with that agency, and those agencies are all over the state. And they get into certifications as a rule of business.
Yeah, typically, we have not worked with them, and the reason, and this is my understanding of how the system works, that certification process is different than the one that is required by the Federal Transit Administration and the ADA Disabilities Act, and that generally speaking, they have different criteria for what would allow a person to be determined eligible for paratransit service. So the disability criteria is different.
Yeah, well, you're missing my point. My point is you have an agency that is there doing that. And if you give them a criteria that says, here's our criteria, can you help us in this assessment? You already have people that are doing assessments. I would imagine somebody comes in as an amputee, it's pretty easy to tell if it's an amputee. If you're talking about looking at cognitive disabilities versus physical disabilities, those are all things that could be aligned to whatever criteria you're asking for. But it would sure help the citizens if they're already going to this place. they're already there looking for services for employment. And if we're not using those areas, shame on us, because that's where they need to start dealing with the transportation issues of how they're going to go in and improve their quality of life.
It's a very good suggestion. We'll take that back.
Thank you. Ms. Trail.
Sometimes at these meetings we end up giving, a lot of criticism, and I hope it's constructive. And I'm going to
Pull your
my comments.
Pull your microphone closer to you, please.
Is that better?
There
Okay.
you go.
All right. I had an opportunity about a month ago. Was in one of the local municipalities. There was a gentleman in a wheelchair. He was an amputee. Ended up stopping, giving him a ride home. And I took it as an opportunity to say, we do have PACE, we do have paratransit, we do have the availability of vehicles that will come, will pick you up, will take you to where you need to go, and then you bring them back. And he did level some very heavy criticism toward the system in terms of, I don't call them anymore, the driver's crabby. They want exact change when I get on the bus. Is that true? They have to have exact change?
I think it depends on the system. Where are we referring to?
It was in the Romeoville area.
I would think that's...
And, maybe we can talk later, because I do feel that it was so very, very unfortunate, because it was cold and he just didn't want to call anymore. So if you can give me a contact number, I'd be more than happy at least to put some individuals together.
Sure.
And I'm sure we can rectify it.
Yeah, I'll give you my card,
Okay.
and please have them call, and we'll see.
I will. Thank you.
Any last questions? Mr. Howard.
Again, for those the townships that are in here right now that are represented, if I strongly encourage that they give PACE a call, talk to PACE about that, providing these services, because as an operator in a township in Eastern Will County, I have nothing but words of praise for PACE. I mean, they've always helped out, and it makes a difference in a lot of people's lives, and especially those in need right now. And they provide a great service. But communicate with them. They're more than friendly. So, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Any last comments? Any last questions? Well, thank you all for enlightening us on the operations.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We have one proclamation this morning, a proclamation be read by County Board Member Lori McPhillips. Hold on, Lori. Chuck, could you guys take Lori right behind you? Is going to read a proclamation. If you can take your conversation out.
Joliet, and we have several members here. If they could stand to be recognized, please. And I'll point out our current president is Pat Perrier, and then we also have Beth May, who's a previous president, and Mary Bodino, who's also a past president. And thank you for all you do. The Zonta Club of Joliet's a group of professional women. We've provided nearly 40 years of advocacy, working with local agencies such as Lamb's Fold, Guardian, Angel, Groundwork, and legal aid. We raise money, awareness, advocacy, and provide mentoring for women in our community. And that's where this proclamation came from, to recognize. So thank you very much for all you do. And I'm a member also. We have a proclamation recognizing 16 days of activism, elimination of violence against women. Whereas the 16 Days of Activism Against Gender Violence is an international campaign to call for the elimination of all forms of violence against women. And whereas participants chose the dates November 25th, International Day Against Violence Against Women, and December 10th, International Human Rights Day, in order to symbolically link violence against women and to emphasize that such violence is a violation of human rights. And whereas the 16 Days campaign has been used as a strategy to raise awareness about gender-based violence as a human rights issue at the local, national, regional, and international levels, strengthen work around violence against women, and provide a forum which organizers can develop and share new and effective strategies. And whereas over 3,700 organizations in approximately 164 countries have participated in the 16 Days campaign since 1991. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive do hereby recognize the 16 days of activism against gender violence. Be it further resolved that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive encourage us all to educate one another about the issues surrounding violence against women. Dated the 17th day of November, 2011, Lawrence M. Walsh, Will County Executive, Nancy Schultz-Foots, Will County Clerk. I so move.
Moved by Ms. McPhillips, second by Ms. Hart. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried. Thank you. Okay. Moving on. All resolutions from the October 20th, 2011 County Board agenda have been signed by the County Executive. Our first order of business is the Land Use and Development Committee. Mr. Weigel, Chairman.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Tom.
We need to have a public hearing. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing on the zoning cases.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. Rozak. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Adamick. Howard. Singer. Izzo. Weigel.
Yes.
Drayle. Hart. McPhillips. Costa. Mayor. Trainier. Argodelis. Goodson. Smith. Gould. May. Rozak. Konecki. Zagrozi. Brooks. Stewart. Winfrey. Babich. Wilhelmy. And Mustis. Thank you.
25 affirmative.
25 affirmative. We are in public hearing. Please be advised, absolutely no new evidence or information will be allowed once this land use public hearing is closed. Cases to be heard this morning. Case 6014-S, case 5995-S3V2, case 6003-S, case 6009-S, case 6015-V2, case 6018-S, and case 6021-M. Now, we have some people that have signed up, and our first one is Joy Schwerman. Joy Schwerman. Would you like to speak, or no? Okay, you're available for questions at that case. Okay, thank you. Then we have Mike McMahon. Mike McMahon, would you like to speak? Yes, please come forward. Please state your name and address in the case that you wish to talk about.
Thank you. My name is Mike McMahon. I'm the Community Development Director for the Village of Channahon, 24555 South Navajo, Channahon, Illinois. I don't have the case number handy. It's the Cavalier variance request. Okay. As you know, the Village Board passed a resolution 2 meetings ago objecting to the first variance to go 5 high. We do not object to the second variance. As you know, back in 2006, when this this project was first brought before Will County, the Village Board did object to it. We just do not feel that storing containers, a project that just stores containers, is viable for that area, especially so close to Channahon. Channahon does have an ordinance. It's an accessory use ordinance that does allow stacking of containers, but in this case, this project would not be permitted if it came to Channahon. In Channahon, you must have secondary use or a primary use. Stacking could be done if there was warehouse distribution, manufacturing, or some other primary use, and then 30% of the property could then be used for cargo stacking. Additionally, you have to have rail access. So you have to have a primary use, only 30%, and rail access. So the village does object to this variance to go 5 high, and I can answer any of your questions.
Any questions? Ms. Rozak?
I know I asked you this at the land use meeting, but I wanted you to tell everyone here today. Is there anywhere in Channahon where they are stacked 5 high?
Presently, no.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Mr. Weigel?
Is this within your boundary as far as your boundary line agreement with Joliet?
No, it is inside Joliet's boundary.
Okay, it's not in your jurisdiction then?
It's not.
Thank you.
Any? Ms. May?
How close is this to the nearest residential area in Channahon?
It's about 1,000 feet.
You see it when it's. I think in our land use meeting we had a rendering of. We almost could pull it up today and show you what it would look like 5 high. You'll be able to see that from Route 6 as you're entering Channahon when you see the Welcome to Channahon sign, won't you?
If you went 5 high, you sure would. It's right now. It's the 3 high is about the top of the tree line, and this time in the winter you can definitely see them through the trees. If you go 5 high, it would definitely be above the tree line.
And how close is that to our new wonderful, beautiful preserve that the people of Channahon enjoy?
Couple hundred feet, I guess.
Thank you.
Very close.
Any other questions? No, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. McMahon.
Thank you.
Next, we have Helen Kaplan. Would you like to speak?
My name is Helen Kapla, 25018 West Willow Drive, Plainfield, Illinois. I have some additional pictures and information that I hope the board
What case?
will accept.
What case are you?
60003.
Three?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I hope that the board has had time to review some of the comments that were made at the last 2 meetings and some of the pictures that were presented at that time. I have a few more pictures that I'd like to present that depict the type of vehicles that are coming in on this property and previous notes, if I may. 2 weeks ago, my family attended the second meeting on the special use permit by the Carl Bryant property at 15100 South Indian Boundary, the corner of Route 126 and Indian Boundary Road. Originally, 11 of the residents that back into the property attended the first meeting that was held in the evening to express our concerns. 2 of the residents that didn't attend couldn't make the meeting, and the other 2 residents are renters who have a baby and small children that they provide daycare for. 5 of us were allowed to speak and tell of our concerns. As I noted at the last meeting, many of the residents were unable to attend morning meetings since they are still working or have other obligations that prevent them from attending. Our, quote, good neighbor, unquote, Carl Bryant, tells how he helped us correct some of the work on our existing brick pavers. This is true. He also stated that he allowed us to stay at his home in Galena. This is also true, but he practically insisted that we vacation there for a few days. Several times he mentioned it, and on one occasion brought pictures of that property. Was he a, quote, good neighbor, unquote, or just someone trying to appease us so we won't express our complaints about the brick paver business on his property? We have noted that before the meetings, Carl Bryant also makes sure he greets some of the council members that are on the board. Is he making an unconscious statement to the residents that he is friends with the board members and because of his ownership of many properties in the area has had the opportunity to appear before them on a number of occasions? Residential properties that are along the Indian Boundary Road were brought up. These people live across the street from Carl's property, and that side of the property is blocked by view by mature pine trees. The 9 properties that have documented their complaints are homes that backyards face directly into the Fuerte business. My home is approximately in the center of that property. The previous owner of my home planted bushes on the other side of our fence, which at the time was still within our property line. The chain link fences on the property on either side of us extend past our fencing, but the surveyor stakes are no longer there. These bushes over time have matured and other growth has intertwined within them. I'm telling you because in the summer, these bushes bloom and somewhat hide what I consider a construction site. Carl planted about 11 Christmas-type trees backing a few of the properties. These trees are either in the process of dying or already dead. I have previously presented notes on the activity that goes on at this business. On a few occasions, there are trucks that arrive as early as 6 a.m. In fact, a dump truck was heard Wednesday morning, and a pickup truck was on the property at 6:45 a.m. Last meeting, it was stated the trucks come in around 7 a.m. to pick up material in the morning, and little activity happens during the day. I have previously documented some of their activities and turned them into the boards at the last 2 meetings. There are many days that there is continuous activity from trucks, bobcats, and sounds coming from where material is being dumped into the dumpster. Looking back on some of my notes, last year there was only a couple of months when there was no activity or very limited activity. Since the residents don't use their backyards or try to barbecue as much during the winter months, the bothersome thing is looking at the site. We all have limited the spring, summer, early fall activities on our properties to avoid the dust, noise, diesel fumes from the flatbed trucks, semis, bobcats, and so on. We would once again like to be able to enjoy our yards, open our windows, weather permitting, and not have to hear the noise and sounds of trucks and loaders as well as viewing an unsightly work area. I have again presented previous notes to the board and a few more pictures. It's my hope that if the special use permit is granted, that all of the residents backing into this property receive a copy of the conditions that are to be met. The planting of the 5-foot pine trees will be a start, and we can come to terms with the noise, dust, and fumes as we go forward.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Any questions? No, for board members, any questions? Mr. Argadelis?
I know you spoke before land use as well, but just in your last comments that in this case there were 8 conditions that were set forward for Mr. Bryant to comply with, and you're stating that if he complies with those 8 conditions with regard to planting the pine trees, he had agreed to 5 to 6 foot tall evergreen type trees, spruces, pines, etc.
Pine tree type things,
Yeah.
as I remember.
So if he complies with those 8 conditions, then you and continues to comply with those 8 conditions, then you would feel that is a satisfactory solution.
I don't have a copy of what the other conditions were. I would like to have a copy of that for our record.
Okay.
And what I'm saying is there still will be noise and there still will be the fumes that we have to put up with the various types of trucks and vehicles that come into the properties. But hopefully we can work out something where that can, be diminished some.
All right. So that okay. I don't know why you haven't gotten a copy of those, but I'm sure we can provide those to you. But if he agrees to all 8, which he has it in front of land use, then that's one way we could alleviate the concerns and the problems in the area.
Speaking for myself, that will be a good start.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Mr. Mustis?
I just want to get a clarification, and that's on, the complaints I get on these types of facilities in my area are really the hours of operation and all the noise they make. Not only in the summertime, but in the winter, they'll run plow operations to bring it on their plow blades to get ice off them and so forth. So hours of operation do concern me. I just asked, and I said, well, whatever the county ordinance is, which I'm not quite sure what it is it from 6 in the morning till, can anyone tell me what it is?
Mr. Paddock, Mr. Du Bois?
We don't have a requirement of hours of operation. And this is my concern, that these operations will start at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. They make a lot of noise getting started. Yes, they'll be gone. They'll leave the yards, but and in the winter, same types of activities, different activities will go on where there can be quite noisy, waking up everyone. So, without some really guidelines of hours of operation on this type of development, I'm going to absolutely be a no vote. But I just want to express my concern. So, thank you.
Mr. Weigel?
You don't know that.
We could add a condition in there for hours of operation, if that's what Mr. Mussis would like.
Okay. Gentlemen, did you have a question of this lady? Did you sign in? Okay, but that's okay. We'll bring you up afterwards. Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions? Any other questions for Ms. Kaplan? Ms. May.
So if the hours could be changed to be more reasonable, then would that make you a little happier?
Well, I don't know if that's going to make me totally happy, because there's still going to be a lot of the noise and fumes from the trucks coming in during the day, and that's still going to be a little bit problematic.
I was with you at land use. I supported you, but we can't make the company go away.
No, I understand that, but maybe they can.
What we have to do is try to make it a little more
easier for us to live within that area, and be able to use our yards in the summertime without having a lot of activity going on that's going to prevent us from using those yards.
Ms. Konecki.
Regarding the fumes, is there? Do the trucks enter that yard and just stay there or sit there idling? Is that
they idle for a very brief time? I will have to admit, they're either unloading or loading materials, and during that time there is some idling.
But that's the only type of idling. So in other words, idling is just—it's not like they're really having the trucks sit there and continue to idle.
No, they're not continuously going around the property, causing that kind of ruckus.
Can you think of, obviously we would have the ability here this morning to impose a limitation on the hours of operation. I can't think of, but I'm wondering if you can think of any additional conditions we could add to address the noise or the fumes.
I wish that our other residents were here for giving me some ideas, but at this time I cannot.
Mr. Costa.
Yeah, I just have one quick question, and I apologize for not knowing the answer to this, but what came first, the residents or the business?
This particular business has been there for about 4 years, I believe, maybe 5 years. Prior to that, the property that was leased was by a wholesale nursery, and that was a property that we didn't have a complaint on. They did say there were trucks and deliveries made there. We never had a problem with the noise or activity that went on at that time. So this property has been there about 4, maybe 5 years.
Thanks. Mr. Argodelis?
Yes. In your packet, the 8 conditions are on the setback page of that. If board members want to take a look at them now, but there are conditions that staff had come up with to alleviate a lot of any issues that would come up with regard to outdoor storage. Has to be away from the homes, etc. But I know this property well. I grew up within a mile of it, and I live within a half mile of it today. And it's a landscape business that's run out of it. They come in first thing in the morning and in the summertime, and they leave, start their trucks up, load up, go to their job sites, and come in the evening, as any landscape business would be. This particular property has been owned by the Bryant family for as long as I know. It's been zoned industrial since the 50s, and one type of industrial use or another has operated on this property all of these years. Now, this particular landscape use, they've asked for a variance, and they've agreed with the 8 conditions. They've agreed to put, most importantly, there's a hedgerow along the west side of the property, which is the back side of the neighborhood that the speaker lives in, and that hedgerow has some gaps in it, and they've agreed to plant 5 to 6 foot tall evergreen trees in that area. So, given that this has been a industrial and zoned I since the 50s, and there's been various industrial uses there, Mr. Bryan does own other properties in Plainfield, and his history is to keep well-maintained properties. I think anybody in Plainfield can testify to that. He has worked as a good neighbor. He readily agreed to the 8 conditions, and his land use recommended approval of this. As the speaker is saying, if we can get the screen going and work on these other things, we can work it together. But trucks starting up in the morning in a landscape business to go to work, that's part of the business. I mean, I don't know how else they're going to operate their business if they can't start their trucks up in the morning, drive out to their job sites. That's dependent upon the time the sun rises. There is not a snow plowing operation, so pretty much the property's dead from about this time of year until April. So it's obviously I support this strongly in our district. It's a reasonable use, and the 8 conditions I think alleviate the major concerns that could occur, especially the screening.
I would like to make one correction to something that you said. You said they come in the morning and they load their trucks or get their materials or that, and then they come back later in the day to do whatever they have to do. This is not totally true. They do that, but also during the day there's a bobcat that works almost constantly on some days. And if you would refer back to some of my notes that I have presented on a daily basis for a while, you will see that there's quite a bit of activity going on during the day.
Yeah. Well,
okay, Ms. Trainier.
Yeah, I just had a point of clarification, I guess. It was asked earlier which was there first, the business or home, and Mr. Argadelis talked about how it had been zoned industrial since 1950. How long have the homes been?
The homes were built around 1977.
Okay.
Ms. Drayle.
Is this operation 7 days a week?
They don't work on Sundays, and there's only occasional work on Saturday.
Okay. So it's basically a 5-day-a-week
Correct.
operation. Maybe that would be something, I hate to hamstring a business owner, but that might be something you want to put into some of the conditions. I don't know.
Ms. Konecki.
Yes, in terms of which was there first, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. For a long time, there was a wholesale nursery there, and that use of the property did not cause problems for the neighbors. Am I correct?
That is correct.
This particular use started about 4 years ago, and that's when the problems you've described with the dust, the hours, the noise, the fumes, that's when that started for you. So it's this particular use that has created the problems. The use that was there, correct me if I'm wrong, the use that was there when the homes came in was a different use, and it was a compatible use in the sense that it didn't cause these types of problems. Is that correct?
Okay, now, there were several different uses on that property before the nursery. I was not a property owner at that time in that area, so I don't know if there had been problems prior to that. When the nursery was there, none of my neighbors have told me of any problems that that existed with the nursery. And when I moved in, the nursery was there, and we had no problems with them.
Okay, and you've identified problems with fumes, noise, hours. You also mentioned dust, am I correct?
Yes.
And that dust wasn't there with the wholesale nursery either?
No, they did say that they had trucks and that came in, to pick up trees or whatever, and we never had a problem with the dust from that.
I have one of these uses in my district, and that's why I was not able to support it in committee. I mean, certainly I think if other board members are willing to support this morning, they certainly need to impose reasonable hours. I think they ought to add another condition absolutely banning commercial snow plowing because, a former board member had one of these uses go in next to him, Hugh Stippen, and he would describe the trucks coming back after spending, the dark hours of the night plowing, supermarket parking lots. They'd come back, 2, 3 in the morning, and then they'd get on site and they'd take a big heavy sledgehammer and smack the blades to get the snow off before it turned to ice. Horrible, horrible, horrible noise problems. In my district with this type of a use, we've had I've seen firsthand the problems with dust, and it's kind of unavoidable. They may bring in piles of gravel or big stone, and when they dump it, there's just a whoof of dust. Every time they take a bobcat in it to shovel up a load and to take it to a site, there's a huge plume of dust. So I am not comfortable with this, but for board members who are going to vote for it, I think you, at a minimum, as a matter of courtesy to these people, impose hours, absolutely ban snow plowing, and find some wording in there to enable us to get a handle on the dust problem. Make sure the applicant is doing everything reasonable to keep that down. So if it starts to get out of hand, we have a handle to get back in there and help the residents. Because in my district, when we located one of these, we didn't put such a handle in there, and my residents have suffered terribly. I have seen the screens clogged with this kind of dust. So I can't support it as it's currently proposed for a vote this morning.
Ms. Goodson.
To my knowledge, there is no snow plowing going on at that facility.
If you don't ban it, they could start
Right,
it.
I understand that.
Ms. Goodson.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. I just want to say I'm fairly familiar with this case, as the some residents had contacted Representative Cross's office as long ago as 2 years ago. And I just want to say that the owner has been very agreeable to addressing each complaint as they've come on a case-by-case basis. I mean, he's tried very hard to be a good neighbor, and I would expect nothing different moving forward. As complaints have occurred, he's received calls from our office, and he has tried to work with the neighbors. And as Mr. Argadelis mentioned, this is a person that owns a lot of different properties in Plainfield, and that has been all of my experience with him, is that he has tried very hard to work and work through any disagreements.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
I just have a question, maybe that you can answer this. As our colleague said, these guys have been in business since 1950. Or that property has been zoned and been used since 1950-ish, okay? What specifically, I'm trying to go through this information and see.
Who are you addressing your question to?
I'm actually addressing it to Lee as the...
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to find out what specifically this property is wanting us to make a decision on with all those uses. Is it just a continuation and maybe
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
original
Yeah.
use?
The present use is he constructs playground equipment for park districts, and he brings his equipment to this site and stockpiles it. And when they have a project, they come in and they gather the equipment they need and take it out to a park and they assemble it. It's not really landscaping, but there may be some side uses where they may bring back sod or something like that from their primary business. But you could ask Mr. Bryant, he's here, if he has more comments concerning that.
So what they're asking us to allow that?
They're trying to come into compliance with the county because... Right.
Okay, Mr. Argadelis, you have maybe a final comment?
Well, just a little more clarification. It's just, there's a lot of, obviously we have committees where we get a fuller story of things, but I don't want the board to be misinformed. For example, the issue of dust was addressed at the Land Use Committee. They have put crushed asphalt down, which has helped with the dust issue. Staff analyzed this. Staff has gone out to the site. Staff did a good job of identifying the issues that go along with granting this variance, and that's how they came up with 8 conditions. The applicant readily agreed to those 8 conditions and has in fact started implementing those conditions. The resident who's speaking today is mostly concerned that these conditions be enforced and that we comply with them. So I don't, I don't like the misinformation of there's mushroom clouds of dust out there and all sorts of stuff like that. All of those issues have been addressed, and the 8 conditions, staff did a good job of identifying those concerns in those 8 conditions. So.
Okay. Any other final questions for this, Ms. Kaplan, Mr. Mustis?
Now I'm getting, I don't want to say confused, but I'm going to say I'm getting a little confused. So now so this is not a landscaping yard, even though we are giving them a special use for landscaping? Or contractor's yard? But it says contractor's yard and landscaping. So are they running a landscaping operation from there or not?
Wait a minute. Mr. Paddock, would you or David Du Bois would like to come forward and clear up?
Because if it's not a traditional landscaping yard, that makes a difference.
This particular case, we initiated an enforcement action against the current use.
Which was what, Kurt?
Okay, right. The current use is as a landscaping and contractor's yard. That is how we would characterize the current use under the ordinance. This was a use that the owner had his tenant begin to engage in prior to receiving the proper zoning entitlements. The entitlement to engage in the use that I just described to you would only be granted by your passing this special use. The prior use, most recent prior use on the property, had been what the zoning ordinance would characterize as a nursery operation. When the nursery operation was under use, it was in compliance. When the current tenant began to engage in the form of use that they are currently engaging in, they had come into violation because, given their particular industrial category, that landscaper's contract yard was not an authorized use. We took the enforcement action, as we always do. We then informed the property owner how to come into compliance. And the way to come into compliance was to apply for a special use to authorize the landscaping contractor's yard. That is what's before you. You have it all in your packet, but I would indicate, just again for the purpose of clarity and transparency, that at the initial level of staff analysis and the recommendation that was given to the Planning and Zoning Commission, the staff recommended against the granting of this special use permit. However, as we always do, we, in our service function, pointed out to the Planning and Zoning Commission and subsequently the Land Use Committee of the Board that should they decide to recommend approval of the special use permit, here are conditions that we would offer.
Okay. Mr. Mustis?
Kurt, because I just want to get some additional clarification. So it's an industrial zoning. Is it
It's zoned I-1.
So it's I-1. So under I-1, is a contractor's yard permitted?
Only with a special use permit.
Okay. So, I'm just curious. So what is I-1 then? What do we allow in I-1? I'm just, because it seems to me, and I think the misperception is you have these industrial zonings, and we go from I-1 to I-3, correct? And, of course, they have various by right uses. But people think, well, it's industrial. And what typically would be allowed in I-1? I'm just...
A contractor's shop would be allowed in I-1, various like assembly and manufacturing type uses. One thing that is significant that is not allowed by right is outdoor storage or contractors' yards.
That's under all the everyone needs special use.
In I-1.
In I-1.
In I-1.
For outdoor storage.
Right.
That's not the case for I-3? I thought everyone needed it.
It varies. In some districts, you can have some outdoor storage, but I think it's uncontained bulk material, like piles of gravel and sand, that you would always need it for.
Okay. So on this currently, because I'm getting the impression there's assembly going on of park playground type of equipment or recreational equipment. And then I don't quite understand on the landscaping aspect, but for the operating that made you take action.
When they were first cited, I think there was an argument that this was similar to the nursery stock special use permit that was granted, and we reviewed that and determined that this was just different from the nursery stock. I believe that they store some trucks out there. There may be occasional equipment that is stored out there. I'm not occasionally some of the products that they use to build the playgrounds might be out there as well, and some other miscellaneous, more landscape type materials, more what you would typically see with a traditional landscape business, may also be associated with the use and be out there as well.
Yeah, and I don't mean to be giving you a hard time here. I'm really trying to get clarification. So your determination is if there's landscaping materials there, that it's a landscaping operation? You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a difference between, I'm trying to, what may be there. Clearly, outdoor storage is an issue there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll acknowledge that.
Right.
But certainly having certain same landscaping materials there doesn't necessarily mean they're running a landscaping operation from there. And you mentioned trucks. Are they not allowed to park their trucks on their property or store trucks on the property? I'm assuming that they're there overnight or whatever. I mean, I don't quite understand what you meant there. So
Okay. It is difficult in some of these circumstances because of the permitted uses that are allowed in I-1. You could be a landscaper and be permitted to just have your shop in I-1 but not have anything stored outside. When you are starting to park several trucks associated with a landscape business or equipment, that's what kicks in the need for outdoor storage for a contractor's yard.
But having equipment on site, things parked, here again, I'm going to get back to, doesn't necessarily, I guess what I'm asking is, did you observe the actual landscaping operation from that site?
I am not the inspector who went out there. When I was out there, they had ceased most of their outdoor storage.
Well, the answer is yes, it was observed, and this is the representation of the applicant, that is the business that they are engaged in. So you don't have to take our word for it.
Well, I think you told them that. I think you told them that, Kurt.
No, they told us.
They told you they were in the
that's the nature of their business.
They told you they were in the landscaping operation?
And they acknowledged that the nature of the business had changed from its prior use.
I'm getting more confused because I've heard something different earlier, so I actually had the chairman of the committee say that they're basically assembling playground equipment and they don't really do landscaping. But they do outdoor storage. I mean, and they may bring materials back. That's what I heard from the chairman. But you're saying that's not correct. That's all.
What I am saying is that they...
I don't want to argue with you, Kurt.
And you could, best get the representation of the nature of the business from the applicant. But what they have told us is that they have various materials that are related to their landscaping business that are stored at the site, that they collect them and place them on trucks and drive to the sites of their clients to engage in their landscaping activities.
Mr. Adamek, you had a question?
What is the hours of their operation?
We have been, as was indicated under the ordinance, there's not presently a stipulation of allowed hours of operation. The matter has come up about possibly including this as an additional condition to the special use. Eileen, you spoke briefly with the applicant as to what they would regard as their current hours of operation. Did they share that information with you?
I spoke with the owner of the property. The operator of the business is not present. We discussed possibly 6:30 a.m. as a start time and 8 p.m. as an end time. We did not talk about whether it was, weekday versus weekends. We could prohibit weekends.
6:30 a.m. to 8.
Does that answer your question, Wally?
Yes. Thank
Mr.
you.
Argadelis?
Yes, I think to clarify some of the confusion here, the business has not changed. The company has not changed. The tenant has not changed during this period. Originally, this tenant was using this property for landscape materials and storage in compliance with the original use. His business expanded where he builds parks, playground type of parks with pavers and other landscape materials, and that's the part, as he expanded his business, he never came in to get a special use to do that. That's where he fell out of compliance. And that started this whole process. So I think we need to clarify that. And then if you look at the issue that comes up with that, as Eileen pointed out, then you get into the whole issue of the outdoor storage issue. If you look at your 8 conditions, most of these conditions have to do with screening the outdoor storage. This site is located on Route 126. It's a major highway that runs through the heart of Plainfield. But the conditions have outdoor storage is limited to the east portion of the property of the interior road. Applicant must fill in gaps in screening. Outdoor storage must be screened on all sides at all times. Open burning is prohibited. Landscape waste shall not be transported to the site. So all of the items that go along with granting the special use, all of those concerns have been addressed by staff's 8 conditions. And the applicant has said, fine, we'll do all those things.
Yeah. Let me be clear, I'm not in any sense advocating here. I'm merely trying to provide information. On any special use permit, the decision that's before the board is, one, certainly would the conditions be appropriate, but also you're asking yourself, is the underlying use that is going to be authorized by the special use permit consistent with the neighborhood surroundings and the other criteria stipulated in the ordinance. So what you need to make a decision about is that now that the nature of the use is proposed to be changed, is that a use, together with the conditions that would be imposed upon that use, something that you want to authorize?
Ms. Rozak?
I just have a question on the rewrite that we're working on, because I don't remember, we've done so much. Is this going to change? Is this going to be a by right in it, or will it stay the same? Would they still have to go through the same process?
I believe at this point we have not proposed any changes to outdoor storage in I-1.
Is that correct?
Ms. Trail?
Yeah, you know, and I'm going to apologize ahead of time. Part of this was my fault for not looking at my board packet and going through the actual aerial that was presented. I was sort of confused as to why you didn't have many additional concerns regarding this facility. But I think once you look, if you look at the aerial that is taken, this is a pie-shaped entity, property right here with major highways on both sides. It seems to be a real appropriate use for what we have. I think this is something that certainly can be supported with the conditions that are being put forward, unless there's, you know, some other issues, but it is logical. It's a large industrial portion. It's a pie shape. There's residential on the background, and I think the conditions will most certainly satisfy her. I don't know, by restricting the hours of operation here, this appears to be a very large operation, and if we start restricting conditions, this may have a financial impact on this business, and we certainly don't need to shut down any businesses in Will County with our current job situation.
Mr. Mayor.
We should move forward on this.
I'm actually supporting what my colleague is saying here, and taking a look at the aerial photo and the fact that we actually have a business that's trying to expand. I'm not inclined to start setting any kind of policies right now that's going to stop that if it's not going to be impacting a large number of people. I think the berms and the conditions, and even to this lady's point, a lot of this is being addressed, and until we get it addressed and see where it goes from there. So.
Any last? Ms. Conaking?
It obviously there's support for passing this. My comments earlier were that, you know, as currently proposed with the conditions, I would not be able to support it. The additional conditions I would be looking for, at a minimum, would be for some wording to the effect that and I don't think applicant would have a problem with any of these. The first one would be that the driving surface shall be as reasonably free from the generation of dust as possible. There was a bad dust problem before. Apparently, the applicant has put something down to make that better, but I think we ought to lock it in with the conditions so that it is always maintained as a reasonably dust-free driving surface. The other thing, again, would be the hours of operation. There's nothing, there's nothing in the conditions put forth right now that limits the hours. I think, and I wouldn't want to see him expand into Sunday. If he can live with 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and apparently he can, I think we ought to put that in as a condition so that we're, again, protecting our residents. I would also like to see a condition added that the premises shall not be used in connection with a commercial snow plowing operation. I realize he doesn't do that now, but he's obviously an expanding business. Let's make sure he doesn't expand into commercial snow plowing. And then the fourth one I would like to see on there is that the special use permit shall travel with the current lessee and not with the owner of the land, so that at some point the residents can look forward to perhaps getting rid of such an intensive use adjacent to their backyards.
Okay. Ms. Trainier, did you have a comment?
Just a question. If you're zoned I-1, are there any hours of operation associated with that? No. Okay. Thank you.
Is there any other final questions?
I have a comment, if I may.
If you may.
Okay. You're saying that, this is an expanding business. Well, that's fine. We like to see growth, too. But with that comes another problem. There's going to be more work and more noise going on in the back of our yards. And even though we may have these trees that kind of prevent us from seeing what's going on, it's still going to create quite a bit of noise and quite a bit of aggravation for the residents that live behind that. If there's some way we can kind of resolve some of that, I would be happy to go along with what they're requesting. And if you'll see some of the pictures that I presented today, it shows the types of trucks and vehicles that come in. It also shows a little bit of what's on the grounds. I didn't bring a whole stack of pictures like I did previously, but like I say, I'm not totally agreeable to everything that they're saying.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Mustis.
Yeah. The only other thing I want to mention about noise, I always feel there should be as much screening for noise. Certainly the landscape barriers will help with that. But we do have a noise ordinance. So it should be pointed out, if they go above the noise ordinance, they could be cited. So
the noise that comes from the property, like I say, many, many days, especially during the summer months and spring and early fall, is kind of constant on a lot of the days. And you'll see if you refer to some of my notes that there is a lot of activity that goes on. So the noise is pretty much constant. A lot of it is from bobcats or dump trucks coming in and moving equipment and stuff around, or materials around. So like I say, that's not going to be totally solved by the trees. It will help, but it won't totally solve it.
We have a noise ordinance. I've lived next to teenagers that played their music all day long that felt was sometimes annoying. But, as long as they're within the noise ordinance, it's a lot. I just wanted to point out is that there is a noise ordinance that the county has, and if they're in violation of that, they could be cited.
The other thing that I had mentioned previously at one of the meetings is the I-1 zoning was done sometime, I think Mr. Vallone said, in the 1950s. And the residential homes, the properties, were built in 1977. So, there is a difference there because there is a lot of residential area backing into that property now. So that should be taken into consideration, too, I believe.
Thank you very much for your comments, ma'am.
Thank you.
The gentleman that evidently didn't, you wish to speak? You could. Let's try and keep it, we're going to have a committee meeting. Let's have a committee meeting. Come on down. State your name and address.
My name is Carl Bryant. My address is 13360 Rivercrest Drive in Plainfield, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to this issue this morning. My family has had this property since 1950, and we operated a pole building business there. My father was the third in the country to build pole barns commercially, and I grew up on the site. I have a picture here. It's hard to show you, but when this property was in play, there were no homes around at all. It was all ag. When Plainfield came to me many years ago and said we would like to develop residential to the west, I allowed them to have an easement to my property, both for Whispering Creek and Indian Oaks, which is to the southeast of me. I've endeavored to be a good neighbor. When people have complained, and even the lady that was just up here, I went to her home several times, and I tried to placate her concerns as I have others. I've had opportunities during the booming times to put uses there that the neighbors wouldn't really like. I've had cell tower applications, I've had sign applications, even had a gas station wanted to go there, and I've wanted to keep the property pretty much the way it is. The current tenant is and he did grow with me. He does these little parks. He does them for park districts, and he does kind of maybe clarify the landscape aspect of it is. He'll have an architectural design, and it'll have playground equipment on the site, and it'll have some landscape. It'll have sod. It'll have bushes, and it'll probably have pavers. And he does these all over the Chicago area. And he's a responsible individual. He recycles. He has tried to answer these concerns. He disconnected the backup bell on his equipment, so there wouldn't be a dinging noise when the equipment was in reverse. And we want to comply, I do, and he does, with the conditions that have been put forward. I have no problem with them and would do that. And I would certainly answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Konecki.
Yes, thank you for coming here this morning. I know that your lessee has installed a driving surface that is reasonably dust-free. Would you have a problem if we made that a condition that your lessee shall maintain a driving surface that is as reasonably free from the generation of dust as possible?
That's a good point. For many years, and even when my father had the business there, and if the picture I pulled up, it had crushed rock on it, which has dust. And in August, it was dusty. They would be dusty. And it was that way for years, even when Bork Nurseries were there. And my tenant, on his own volition, obtained crushed asphalt and put it down, and it has substantially, probably 95%, reduced what dust was there. And what happens is, as it's driven on and as heat hits it, it bonds together and makes a good surface. And you have to maintain it, but he has. One thing it puzzled me a little bit, the thing about snow plowing. I've never had a plowing operation. I have no intention of doing a plowing operation.
Well, so it doesn't sound like you'd have a problem if we attached a condition that said that the driving surface shall be maintained. The crushed asphalt driving surface shall be maintained to be as reasonably free as possible from the generation of dust.
We've done it. We are doing it. I have no problem with it.
It's a matter of your maintaining it that way and it being there 5 years from now. But that wouldn't be a problem, correct?
It's not.
Okay,
one question I had, too, is you brought up I'm the applicant for this.
I'm going to go one by one through my
ahead.
suggestions. And for each one, we want to know whether you would have a problem or not have a problem. That's why I'm doing it.
Okay.
And in terms of the hours of operation, I made the comment I don't think we'd want to see them expand to Sundays, for example. Would you have a problem with 6 to 8 Monday through Saturday?
No, and I don't.
Okay. Would you have a problem, since it's not being used for a snow plowing business and you have no intention of using it for a snow plowing business, that we attached a condition that the premises shall not be used in connection with a commercial snow plowing business?
It's not a part of this application.
It's not a problem then, correct?
No.
And how about, do you have a problem if, since we do have residents who would prefer we don't support this, that if we do go forward, we at least limit this special use permit to your current tenant?
Well, so that's the way I want to be the applicant for the special use. That's what I am. I've applied for it, and I don't want, if you're putting a timeline on how long I can use the business in some form, I wouldn't do that.
Is it your business or your tenant's business?
I'm talking about my property. It's his business, but I have.
Can we then at least limit it to your ownership of the property?
I don't want to do that. I may not be around. It might be my children. Why would I do that? My father wasn't limited when he had the property, and now I don't see why I should be either.
Okay, so at least the first three you didn't have a problem with. Okay.
Could I ask you a question?
Yes.
Did you appear at the Land Use Committee meeting when this case was brought up for discussion?
Yes, I did.
Was any of these questions or ideas tossed around or talked about in the committee meeting?
No.
That's not true.
Well, there's on the dust. The dust thing came up, and I've talked about the dust issue before.
Well, the discussion amongst Nancy and her staff here today is if all of these ideas are now going to be placed here, that the idea of taking this back to committee would probably be the most advantageous, where everybody could see what they actually are doing, and that this gentleman could have actually a opportunity, just as he was in debate with Ms. Konecki on issues that he does not want to see restricted on his property. And, I think, we operate on a committee structure in this county government, and it definitely, this is where almost all this discussion should have taken place. So,
But, yeah, Larry, that's just a minute.
3.5 hours you had this meeting, took 3.5 hours? And we just spent an hour and a half on it here?
Larry, there's a different.
So, anyway, Mr. Eustace.
Mr. Executive, this is a public hearing.
I understand that, Jim.
And I'd like to also mention that of a 27-member board, 7 people sit on that committee. I understand what you're saying about committee members, but certainly non-committee members in a public hearing would probably ask some questions. I understand your point. And I might also point out to everyone here in the public hearing that no new evidence is supposed to be presented.
Yeah.
And it does seem like we're presenting new things. So I understand. And by the way, we're 2 hours into our meetings and we haven't gotten very far today. So I'm getting a little frustrated myself. So I'm gonna make a motion.
Well, I don't know if we can. Jim, I don't think we can make a motion while we're in the public hearing. We can do it after we come out.
I said I'm making a motion to come out of public hearing.
Well, we still got some more speakers.
Oh, we do. Okay.
Yes.
We might be here for lunch.
Kathleen, continue.
Just very quickly, these issues were all discussed in the committee, but I think the applicant perhaps had more support there than he has on the general floor, and that's why those issues are getting a greater hearing here. But certainly, if the applicant doesn't mind it going back to committee, I certainly don't.
Mr. Singer.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. I tend to agree with at least some combination of what you and Mr. Musis had just said. I think we should remember that Mr. Bryant, even though he's standing at a podium, this is not a witness stand, and I think that we need to stick to the issues here and either make motions when we get out of here to add amendments and move on. I mean, I think we've covered this thing to its nth degree.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other comments? Any other questions? You have anything more to say that?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I would like to. I'd like to get a vote, and I went through this with land use, and it was covered. And by your own rules, as it was just mentioned, there's no new evidence, and I think we've covered everything.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next speaker, Mr. Daniel Stinnett. Mr. Stinnett, would you like to have the opportunity to speak?
Good morning. Thank you for your patience and service so far this morning. My name is Daniel Stinnett. I am from New Lenox at 908 Bryan Trail. I just want to take a moment to introduce myself, my family, and our organization. It seems like so far in this process we've actually made a lot of progress, so don't need to take long. I'm born and raised in New Lenox. I went to all the New Lenox grade schools, graduated from Lincoln Way Central High School. My family came to Joliet in 1956. My grandparents are Peter and Helen Cinquegrani, who were the ones who developed McDonald's. They built the Jefferson Street McDonald's, which was the first one, the 13th McDonald's in the world that my uncle owns now. My mom owns 3 McDonald's, 2 in Lockport and 1 in New Lenox, and my dad has 2 businesses in New Lenox as well. So we've just had a good time here in New Lenox and in Will County and Joliet. A few years ago, I started an organization called Lincoln Way Community Youth Center, also known as The Hub, and the goal of that is to be able to influence young people in positive things and provide them weekend entertainment that's drug-free, alcohol-free, and allows them to express their gifts and hopefully propels them to good things in life. So far it's been a great run, and we're looking forward to doing many things in the future. I understand that with this special use permit that we're working towards, there are conditions which I'm more than willing to agree to. It's going to be some effort working with the building and the health department to figure exactly out how we do that, but that we do that, I'm sure that we want to do that. So I appreciate your time, and in the time to come, my goal is that we'd eventually be able to build a new facility that would serve the entire Will County region and even the Southwest Chicago suburb region for young people. So I just want you to know who I am, so that if in the years to come I come back up here, you'll have an idea of kind of what we've been working on over these years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Singer?
Yeah, real quickly, just considering our timing this morning and your affiliation with McDonald's, if you might be willing to bring us lunch.
Yeah, my grandpa he built the Cass Street McDonald's right down the street, but we don't own it anymore. So.
I think Miss Konecki could use a Happy Meal. So.
Yes, yes, we all. Yes, thank you. No,
thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the general public wishes to speak at this time? Is there anyone from the general public wish to speak on any of these cases? Anyone from the general public? Mr. Weigel?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Smith. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Sherbalata. Adamick. Howard. Singer. Yes. Izzo.
Yes.
Weigel.
Yes.
Drayle. Yes. Hart. Yes. McPhillips. Yes. Costa. Yes. Mayor. Yes. Trainier. Yes. Argadelis. Yes. Goodson. Yes. Smith. Yes. Gould. Yes. May. Yes. Rozak. Yes. Konecki. Yes. Segrosi. Yes. Brooks. Yes. Stewart. Yes. Winfrey. Yes. Babbage. Yes. Wilhelmy. Yes. And Mustis. Yes. Thank you.
24 affirmative.
24 affirmative. We are out of public hearing. Mr. Weigel, please continue.
Our first case is 6014S. Was tabled last month at the request of District 8. I'd like to make a motion to remove it from the table.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Argadelis. Any questions? Any questions? Motion to remove previous roll call by Mr. Babbage, second by Mr. Wilhelmy. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
District 8 commissioners have agreed that this is a good use, so I make a motion to approve special use permit for packaged liquor sales in Joliet Township, and I make a motion, I so move with two conditions.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Smith. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Brooks. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Next case, 5995-S3V2. We're looking for a special use permit for contractor's yard on lots 6 and 7 with two conditions in New Lenox Township. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Costa. Is there any questions? Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Hart, second by Ms. Drayle. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
For the same case, make a motion to approve a special use permit for residents of a proprietor or caretaker or watchman on lot 6 with three conditions as amended. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. Trainier. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. May, second by Mr. Gould. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Next item is a special use permit for the same case for camper, RV, and bus repair shop on lot 7 with four conditions. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Mayor. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Howard. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary. Ms. Konecki, would you like to be a yes? Ms. Konecki, would you like to be a yes on this one?
Next item is for the same case, a variance for screening for outdoor storage requirements for lots 6 and 7. And committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. McPhillips. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Hart, second by Ms. Drayle. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next case, 6003-S. This is for Carl Bryant, and it's a special use permit for contractor yard and landscape outdoor storage with 8 conditions. Condition 2 was amended. There's been discussion here to add additional conditions. I would add additional condition number 3, hours of operation, 6:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Monday through Saturday. And condition 4, that the driving service be...
excuse me, Tom, you already got 8. Well, don't you want to start with 9 and 10?
Okay. Right, 9 and 10.
9 on the first one.
Okay.
10 on this one.
Right.
Okay.
The driving area would be kept dust-free as much as possible. And 11 would be no commercial snow plowing on this facility. Those would be I would amend the conditions for that, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. Konecki to amend the original request. Discussion, Mr. Mayor.
I don't think we should put an 8 o'clock time frame on this. I mean, if we're going to put a time frame on this, the sun stays up during the summer until well after 9 o'clock. And so to go in and say we're going to just go in and put a 6 to 8 time frame, I think it's inappropriate. I think we're stepping over the boundaries. And as you take a look at the lot on this, and I understand the noise condition and things like that, but I really don't think that we need to get into telling a business what their time frame is.
Mr. Argendelis?
You know, on the surface, some of these conditions can sound reasonable, but I agree with Mr. Mayor. You know, on a particular day, you could be on a job and it can run really late, and you could be coming in there at 9:30 in the middle of July. I mean, hours of operation, especially on this type of a business, we all know they start very early and they usually end very late. I think the only of the additional conditions that I would suggest we support is maintaining the dust-free condition to as well as possible. That seemed to be the main concern of the neighbor. They weren't talking about hours of operation or anything else, and if they, you know, so I think that should be the only additional restriction.
Ms. Konecki?
Yeah, I think we'll probably have to vote on these one by one, but regarding the hours of operation, I mean, this is literally adjacent to residential, not across the street, it's adjacent. There are school children, there are children who live in these homes who go to bed earlier than 9 or 9:30. So you have to balance the equities between allowing him the use he wants and having at least, I mean, the adjoining property fit for people to occupy, with children to occupy. He agreed to the 6 to 8. So to make arguments that he himself is not even making and leaving these people who live adjacent to it open to these such late hours, I don't think that's reasonable. Government has to balance equities. It can't be all, well, we don't want to impose something on the business. You also have to protect your residents. You have to find a balance. You can't be too much in one person's corner, too much in the other side's corner. And I think when I asked him for the hours and he agreed to them, we struck a proper balance. I mean, that's still pretty late, but it's going to allow him to operate his business, and it gives at least some protection to the people who live adjacent to this use. So I would certainly support those hours.
Ms. Rozak?
You know, as far as allowing new evidence, I never heard any evidence about school children. I don't know who lives in those houses there, and I never heard anything about school children. For me, the bottom line is this is zoned I. It's been zoned I since the 1950s. It's worked without these hours until now. I would be a no on that.
Mr. Argendelis?
I mean, this is so arbitrary. I mean, well, let's put 6 to 8 on this one. We're going to put 7 to 5 on another one. I mean, we're just arbitrarily doing it. The owner of the property's here, but the owner of the actual business isn't even here to say if those hours work for him. I don't think it's our job to be the nanny state where we tell you have to have your last truck in the door at 8 o'clock at night. Let them run their business. It's an I-zone place. It's been there forever, and I think that we are trying to micromanage private industry way too much.
Let's call the vote.
Been a motion and a second on the amendment. Madam Clerk, call the roll as the amendment. The motion Mr. Weigel made was he made 3 amendments to the original amendment. Now, if you want to back up and only make 1 and vote on that, then you got to do it that way. But otherwise, we're going to vote on what the motion was. Mr. Weigel?
I'll withdraw my my motion if someone wants to do it one by one.
All right.
Who seconded it? They can withdraw.
Mr. Mayor, I think, seconded. Only you seconded? Well, then, somebody make a motion, whatever amendment you want.
The first one would be hours of operation from 6:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday.
So
I'll make a motion to approve that amendment.
To add an additional condition.
Right.
Okay. And moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Bellotta. No. Adamick. Howard. Singer. No. Izzo. No. Weigel.
No.
Drayle. No. Hart. No. McPhillips. No. Costa. No. Mayor. No. Trainier. No. Argadelis. No. Goodson.
No.
Smith. No. Gould. No. May. No. Rozak. No. Konecki. Yes. Zagrozi. No. Brooks.
No.
Stewart. No?
No.
Thank you. Winfrey?
No.
Babbage?
No.
Wilhelmy? And Mustis? No. Thank you.
1 affirmative, 25 negative.
Having received 1 vote, the motion dies.
Okay. The other amendment would be to have maintain a dust-free driving service. I make that motion.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. Goodson. Any questions? Question, Mr. Smith.
As it's stated, it can't be a dust-free. Where we much reasonably dust-free is what I think we should say in the motion, because dust-free is just not going to work.
Right. That was my intent. It should be as dust-free as much as possible.
Moved by Mr. Is that okay with you, Tom? And Brian?
It's reasonable.
Okay, so second condition, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Bellotta?
Yes.
Adamick? Yes. Howard? Yes. Singer?
No.
Izzo?
No.
Weigel?
Yes.
Drayle?
No.
Hart?
No.
McPhillips?
No.
Costa?
No.
Mayor?
No.
Trainier? Argadelis?
No.
Goodson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Gould?
Yes.
May?
Yes.
Rozak?
No.
Konecki?
Yes.
Zagrozi?
No.
Brooks?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Winfrey?
Yes.
Babbage?
No.
And Wilhelmy?
Yes.
And Mustis?
No.
Thank you.
Affirmative, 13 negative.
It's our lucky day today.
I vote no.
Okay, next item is an amendment to not allow snow plowing operations. I so move.
Moved and second by Ms. Konecki. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
So a no vote would be, they would be able to allow snowplowing, correct? Double negative.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're adding a restriction to them by voting yes.
Ready? Bellotta? Adamick? Howard? Singer?
No.
Izzo?
No.
Weigel?
Yes.
Drayle?
No.
Hart?
No.
McPhillips? Costa?
No.
Mayor?
No.
Trainier?
Yes.
Argadelis?
No.
Goodson?
Yes.
Smith?
I'll be in the middle.
Gould? May? Rozak?
No.
Konecki?
Yes.
Zagrozi? Brooks?
Yes.
Stewart? Winfrey?
Yes.
Babbage?
No.
Wilhelmy?
Yes.
M. Eustace?
No.
Ten affirmative, 16 negative.
10 affirmative, 16 negative. The amendment has died. Now,
Okay.
Mr. Weigel.
We go back to our main motion then. We do not have any amendments. Committee recommends approval for a special use permit for contractor yard and landscape outdoor storage with 8 conditions. Condition number 2 was amended. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Smith. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Sure. Bellotta? Adamick? Howard? Singer?
Yes.
Izzo?
Yes.
Weigel?
Yes.
Drayle? Hart? McPhillips? Costa? Mayor? Trainier? Argadelis? Goodson? Smith?
Yes.
Gould? May? Rozak? Konecki? Zagrozi? Brooks? Stewart? Winfrey? Babbage? Wilhelmy? M. Eustace?
Eustace is not present.
23 affirmative, 2 negative.
23 affirmative, 2 negative. Motion has carried. Continue, Mr. Weigel.
Next case, 6009-S. This is a special use permit for a youth center with special events in New Lenox Township, the kind of business or nonprofit organization that we should try to encourage in the county. Committee recommends approval with 2 conditions. The Health Department has asked that I add 1 additional condition, that they must comply with Health Department regulations. So I would make an amendment to add that condition.
Well, put the motion on first. Put a motion on the
All right,
floor.
I'll make a motion to put it on the floor.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Gould. Now,
Make an amendment to add condition 3, that they must comply with Health Department regulations.
moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Gould on the amendment. Any discussion? Discussion, Mr. Singer.
Yeah, just a quick question. I know there's been some discussion over the last few months about what those health department requests and regulations are. So just in general, is Mr. Stinnett okay with those conditions?
I believe it's redundant to what would already be included in the building, the requirements for the building permit. So yes, we are still talking with the health department exactly on how to meet that condition, but I understand that condition exists and I'm okay with that.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Maybe to clarify my motion, rather than regulations, it should be all ordinances administered by the Health Department.
Ordinances instead of regulations?
Right.
Ordinances, okay. Got that in. Yep. Any other question? It's already been second. All in favor, or previous roll call by Mr. Babbage, second by Mr. Wilhelmy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary. Now we had 2 no votes.
It was
Miss-
Konecki and Wilhelmy.
You vote aye on this one. Jim Eustace, would you like to be registered as a vote?
And Konecki.
She's gone. She's gone.
Keep going.
Keep going. Now, Mr. Weigel.
Okay, we'll vote on this case for a special use permit for a youth center with 3 conditions. The 3rd condition was added, so I so move.
As amended, second by Mr. Mayor. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Wilhelmy, second by Mr. Zagrosi. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next case, 6015-V2. This is asking for a variance from storage of containers stacking from 3 high to 5 high. This is an existing facility in Shanahan on Youngs Road. Committee recommended denial. There was a split vote on that. The petitioner came forward and said they cannot compete with other facilities. Other facilities do allow stacking 5 high. The city of Joliet had objected to it. They would like this to be maybe a different use, a more intensive use. And Shanahan did talk about it, and they were not in favor of it. But I'd make a motion for approval.
Moved by Mr. Weigel.
This is on the first variance?
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Bellata. Is there a legal objection against this at all? No legals?
No.
No legals. Madam Clerk, any discussion? Ms. May.
I know that my fellow members, commissioners from our district, are not in favor of allowing the stacking of 5 high, and they'll speak for themselves, I'm sure, in a few minutes. But once again, I'd like to remind everyone that at land use, the vote was 5-2 to deny. We talked about it extensively. I'd also like to remind the board members, the reason why I'm against this is not only for the way that it will look when you drive into Shanahan. As I said before, you could see a rendering that they had at land use to show how high this is going to be. It's also my concern, the reason why it's not just for this particular site, which, by the way, is the only site I was told that in our jurisdiction as board members that we have an opportunity to vote about the stacking. And why it only has to be in Shanahan, I don't know, but why they would consider that. But I said in committee is this, that the decision we make today, I don't want to establish a precedent that this would be allowed throughout the county, that we would start to stack these things 5 high. And someone said that this gentleman said that he will not make any money if he's not allowed, additional money if he's not allowed to compete. And I guess my point was, this is not, our decision should not be driven by what the industry calls, but what the people of Will County desire. And as this intermodal comes into our area, there are a lot of things that we have to discuss. And I think the major one is the stacking of these containers. It was my belief that when this was first talked about years ago, that these containers would come in with goods and they would leave with goods. And now all of a sudden we're faced with, well, the containers aren't leaving. You know, they have to be put somewhere. And to me, it's sort of, it's kind of like garbage. It's like businesses leaving their garbage behind, and the people have to put up with it. And so I just asked the fellow board members if you would support us by denying this, because I think that in the future we do need intense discussion as board members on what we're going to do about cargo containers. And I'm just asking that you support us in denying this.
Thank you. Mr. Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. In the interest of time, I'll be brief. I just want to make 3 points. Point number 1, all the representatives of District 6 are opposed to this application. Point number 2, fellow members, if you ever drive up I-55, when you go into Cook County, you see these containers stacked up 5 high. Do we want that here? I don't think we do. This board's been firm and resolute that we've said 3, and we've held to it. I think it's important that we hold to it today. It'll send the industry a message where Will County stands, because we were very clear that we didn't want unincorporated Will County to have these higher than that. Point number 3, 2 months ago, we opened up a new forest preserve a beautiful forest preserve right on this road. With that proximity to this, I don't think we want to do anything which is going to increase the amount of traffic and containers upon this road. We want to keep it nice. Respect that. Keep it as it is. So for those reasons, I'd urge you to vote no.
Ms. Rozak?
I get to go third, so you get to hear a repeat of what. I absolutely agree with my fellow board members here. One of my main concerns on this is opening the door, that this is a slippery slope. Once we do open this door, everybody's going to be knocking at it, saying that they want to stack higher than 3. When we originally crafted this ordinance, we took a lot of time with it. Like Don said, we don't want it to look like Cook County. I remember that phrase being repeated over and over again when we were doing this ordinance. As far as the 3 high, you know, right now there's a berm there, there's trees on top of it, and you still can see the top third cargo container. If you add 2 above that, I don't even know why we're berming or why we're screening. Like Don said, the forest preserve is right across the street. I went out to the site. I spent a lot of time there viewing from different areas, and you can see the cargo containers. You can see them from Route 6. This is going to add, according to the staff report, 1,200 more containers to this site. Also, according to the staff report, there's 2 points here that staff looks at in every report that they give. One of them is that the purpose of is to for the applicant not to make more money, and their answer to that was the purpose of the variation is based upon a desire to increase storage capacity, which will result in increased profit. Another thing they look at is the difficulty or the hardship. And it does say on here the owner developed the site knowing the site limitations. And now they want to come back and change it. I am very much against it, and I would agree with Mrs. May and Mr. Gould. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor?
I believe we're going to be starting that discussion on whether the ordinance should be changed or not. But currently, we have one that says 3. I would agree with and support my colleagues in saying until that's changed, that we keep it at 3, because there's no real. I haven't heard any really good reasons just to allow stacking just to increase the business aspect. If we want to go back and revisit the ordinance and have that debate, I think that's a good thing to do, and it's really healthy. And the business will be able to come back after that debate if the ordinance is changed. So at this point, I'm going to be a no vote.
Thank you. Mr. Mustis?
Yeah, I guess this is probably just some clarification from the district members. I understand your position on the stacking, but there's a second variance for end-to-end groupings from 2 to 6, and to eliminate 30-foot paved access. I'm just interested in what the position of the district members are on the end-by-end groupings. So, since we will be voting on two variances.
They're a separate issue.
I know, I'm just asking you.
Mr. Shanahan, they've indicated at Shanahan that they have no objection, so I will not object to that portion.
I voted yes at committee for that, and I did ask Shanahan administrator at that meeting, and they did not have any objections. And I believe neither did the pipeline.
So their only objection is stacking?
Right.
Correct? Right. Okay. Mr. Smith, you had your hand up, I think?
I did. At land use, everyone's pretty much answered the question, is that, I'll be for the expansion on the footprint itself, but not the height. I just wanted to clarify that everyone knew we're not stopping them from bringing more in, but we are just the height issues is what it is.
All right. So, Ms. Drayle?
Just a quick question again. How far is this from the Shanahan boundaries, municipal boundaries? Yes.
Probably 500 feet. Interstate chemical right there, but the 2 residents about 1,000.
Thank you.
Mr. Weigel?
I'd like to point out we have a couple of letters here on our dais that industry practice is 5 high, according to those letters, and that this property is zoned industrial, and the forest preserve property prior to being a forest preserve, was a strip mine or gravel pit, which was in industrial use. So the whole area there is industrial. And staff did recommend approval of this change.
Okay. Mr. Babbage?
I understand that is a natural gas pipeline. How far would this be from this facility?
You'd have to ask staff.
You know, I mean, with all the oil pipelines that we got going through the county and the breakage we've had, like in Romeoville and other areas around here, I would hate to see cartons flying in the air if it had an explosion out there. It would be detrimental to the people living there and the whole welfare of the county.
Thank you, Joe. David, do you have an answer for Mr. Babbage?
The existing pipeline doesn't currently bisect the property. It's been that way for years. It's currently developed in that manner. The original site development permit that was issued on the property to develop it took that into consideration. Excuse me. There will be no further changes to the property that would require modifications to that site plan. So the easement for the pipelines is taken into account.
That's to answer your question, Joe.
How far is it? What's the actual footage?
Dissects it.
Bisects.
The pipeline bisects the property.
Right through.
And that's already taken into account on the property. It's developed with that in consideration, and that was addressed with the special use permit process.
Okay. Ms. Konecki?
Yes, I'll be supporting my three fellow county board members who oppose the use. We are allowing the applicant to expand the business to the extent we're allowing end-to-end. We're just not allowing him to expand it as much as he wants because we are moving to deny the additional stacking. I remember so clearly this case from when it first came through a couple years ago. I remember Mayor Cook, a very articulate and forceful advocate for his village. His concern was the volume of trucks, not the weight, just the bulk of these things coming in, making right turns, making left turns, backing up traffic, and he just about begged this board to extract from applicant longer turning lanes so these trucks could get out of the flow of traffic and traffic could keep going instead of getting backed up behind these line of trucks making turns. 1,200 more trucks, 1,200 more containers if we stack these. And I mean, maybe if you had longer turning lanes out there, I'd at least give you I'd listen to you more carefully, but I'm very concerned that we never did get from applicant the proper turning lanes out there, and I think going 5 high for the reasons that my fellow commissioners stated in terms of the forest preserve being there, in terms of being entrance into the village of Shanahan and just standing way above the tree line, totally inappropriate.
Thank you. Ms. May, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to point out, Mr. Weigel was referring to that letter from the Container Owners Association. The gentleman begins this sentence that he is writing in regards to, as chairman of the International Trade Organization called the Container Owner Association, whose headquarters are located in England. I don't really care what this guy has to say from England. And so once again, I just want to remind the board members, this is Will County, and Will County should decide what the height of the cargo container should be.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other comments? Mr. Wilhelmy?
I want to agree with Mr. Mayor again. This should not be made on a case-by-case basis. If we want to change our rules and go to 5 high, we should do this by ordinance and make it throughout the county. So we should not be doing it as special use.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the floor, Madam Clerk. And this is just for the stacking, Tom?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So the first vote is just stacking. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Bellotta? Stacking. Adamick?
No.
Howard?
Yes.
Singer?
No.
Izzo?
No.
Weigel?
Yes.
Drayle? Yes. Hart? McPhillips? Costa?
No.
Mayor? Trainier?
Yes.
Argadelis?
All right, wait a minute. No.
No?
Yeah, wait, double negatives on that stuff.
Okay. Argadelis? Goodson?
No.
Brian Smith? Gould? May? Rozak? Conackey? Zegrosi? Brooks? Stewart? Winfrey? Babbage? Wilhelmie?
No.
And Eustace? Thank you.
3 negative, 22 affirmative.
3 positive.
Positive.
3
positive.
3 positive, 22 negative. Motion has died. Mr. Weigel.
The next variance is for end-to-end grouping for the same case from 2 to 6 to eliminate the 30-foot paved access requirement for any site adjacent to the pipeline easement. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Adamick. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Bellotta? Adamick? Howard? Singer? Izzo? Weigel?
Yes.
Drayle? Hart? McPhillips? Costa? Mayor? Trainier? Argadelis? Goodson? Smith? Gould? May? Rozak? Conackey? Zegrosi? Brooks? Stewart? Winfrey? Babbage? Wilhelmie? and Eustace.
25 affirmative.
25 affirmative, motion is carried.
Next case, 6018S, special use permit for home daycare in Jackson Township. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. Rozak. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Stewart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next case, 6021-M for map amendment from A2 to R2A. This is in Jackson Township. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Stewart. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Wilhelmie, second by Mr. Brooks. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Next resolution is 11-419. A resolution appealing the decision of the Will County Planning and Zoning Commission for a Motors, Losaco Motors. This is to allow retail sales of autos in an I-3 district. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Mr. Brooks. Any questions? Previous by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Gould. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Next resolution, 11-420, authorizing temporary use permit for Illinois Transport. This is for temporary use permit for allowing cargo container storage. This is for a company that is going to buy land from the arsenal to build a new facility. So this is just a temporary operation. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. Rozak. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Babbage. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Next resolution, 11-421, authorizing temporary use permit for Centerpoint Properties to allow a temporary office trailer. This is near this Caterpillar property off of Route 6. Committee recommends approval, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. Goodson. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Stewart, second by Mr. Wilhelmie. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weigel. Okay, next we move on to the Finance Committee. Mr. Costa, Chairman.
I think I've been a chairman for 3 years of this committee. I've never had the privilege of saying good afternoon, everybody. So good afternoon. And I'm not allowed to bet on whether or not we're going to finish and that type of stuff. But if I were a betting man, Corey has written tomorrow somewhere down. So with that, I'd like to place a couple of reports on file before we go into public hearing. The first report is the Illinois Department of Revenue showing sales tax remitted to Will County for the month of September 2011 to be roughly $1.3 million, The RTA tax received was roughly $1.6 million. And the second report is the monthly treasurer report dated September 30th, 2011. I move to place those on file.
Moved by Mr. Costa, second by Mr. Gould. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary motion is carried.
Next, I'd like to make a motion to go into a public hearing for the 2012 Will County annual budget.
Moved by Mr. Costa, second by Mr. Mayor. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Sherbalata? Yes. Adamick? Yes. Howard? Singer? Izzo?
Yes.
Weigel?
Yes.
Drayle?
Yes.
Hart?
Yes.
McPhillips? Costa?
Yes.
Mayor? Trainier? Goodson?
Yes.
Smith? Gould? May? Rozak? Conackey? Zagrozi? Brooks? Stewart? Winfrey? Babich? Wilhelmie? And Mustis. Thank you.
Ms. May, would you like to be an aye vote on going into public hearing?
Finance? Thank you.
Pardon me? Mr. Singer, would you like to be an aye vote on going into public hearing?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Affirmative.
22 affirmative. We are in public hearing. Continue, Mr. Costa. You got anything to present?
I don't have
Nothing?
any comments.
Oh, okay,
if
okay. Well,
any
we're
members
in
of the
public hearing.
public-
Anyone from the general public? Anyone from the general public wishes to speak in regards to the annual budget that has been presented? Anyone here wishes to speak in regards to any questions, any comments in regards to the annual budget? Anyone wishing to speak? Move by Miss Conackey.
I'm sorry you addressed your comments to the public and kept looking over there, but I had my hand up. I do have some comments. I'm going to be a no vote this morning on most of the levies, or most of the parts of the budget, but a couple I can support. My reason is first of all, I know what criticisms will be leveled at me, and I'd like to address them. I want to make it clear that in my position, I am not supporting taxpayers paying more taxes. I'm not supporting raising taxes. But I do believe that under a county's current circumstances, we should tax consistently with our abilities under PTEL, which is the Property Tax Extension Limitation Law. Basically, that prevents us from taking any more money from taxpayers this year in real dollars, basically inflation-adjusted dollars. So my position is we should keep the levy the same in terms of real dollars. That's not taking more money. It's just simply taking the same amount in today's dollars. I do not support our taxpayers paying more taxes for the benefit of public employees. I'm going to be talking about something called OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits. But to the extent we can get basically it's a health insurance liability. We can get that down. I want to get that down. But until we get it down, I'll be taking the position that I do want to see it funded. I don't want our taxpayers paying more on it. But until we get it down, we have to meet liabilities. I also agree that we do need to lower the benefits to bring them in line with the public sector. I absolutely and enthusiastically support that position. But we're bound right now. We're bound by contracts that we entered into, and until we can renegotiate those contracts and lower the benefits, we have certain responsibilities to meet. I know that our taxpayers saved about $10 million when we've done a few things to reduce the benefits, and we've been successful in cutting down our liability by about $10 million. But that's $10 million out of about $85 million, which means we brought it down about 10%. We're moving in the right direction, and I support that. But we still, even having done that, we have certain responsibilities that we need to fund or if we don't fund them, we have to show them as unfunded liabilities, which that's what I don't like our county getting into the habit of unfunded liabilities. I know that there are other steps we can take to reduce our, I'll call it OPEB again, our OPEB liabilities. I want to see us do that. I want to see us reduce them further. Until we do that, I will be maintaining my position, however. I also know that the Obama health care law could impact this, but I don't have a crystal ball, and none of us do. We don't know now if it will, how much it will, and frankly, with the Republican push to repeal it, I mean, that's a blood oath that Republican candidates are taking across the country in their elections. I don't even know that we can assume it will be there. So until that settles down, I think it's risky to make any assumptions that that will help us with our unfunded OPEB liability. Now, that being said, what I had asked during the budget process was that the board adopt a plan and policy to identify, control, and implement appropriate funding levels for OPEB liability, past, current, and future. We are currently, and Mr. Rafak, I'm gonna, without calling you up, because you and I have had this discussion just, an hour ago. If I'm wrong, you'll correct me, but our current, on our, right now on our books, we, under law, are showing an unfunded liability of $12 million in our OPEB account. If we go forward with the budget as proposed, that unfunded liability will grow to 14.2. And I'm just not comfortable with that. It takes a great deal of discipline to put the money in there, but I think we need to have that. The owner of by doing what we're doing, the owner of the $200,000 house, if we don't tax with PTEL, the owner of a $200,000 house is saving not even $10. So I don't want people to think that I'm arguing against something significant, but that $10 for them is going to cost this county about $3 million, which could go toward a number of things, reducing the OPEB liability or our capital projects, which I also fully support. But I want people to understand that when they save that $10, the top 10 taxpayers are going to be saving about $150,000, and in fact, $100,000 of that will go just to the top two, which is Exelon and Exxon. It's just kind of disproportional that way. I've also asked that the board adopt a long-range, year-by-year financial plan and policy to fund needed improvements as identified in various studies that we've run. There are 3 studies, and they've cost us about $1.8 million. We've done studies for our roads, that's the 2030 plan. We've done studies for capital projects. Our facilities needs a master plan by White, and we've done an IT assessment. I think it's absolutely imperative that instead of just doing these studies, we take the next step, which is establishing a financial plan and policy to implement that. I'm especially, personally, my embarrassment for our county is our courthouse. I know we want to attract business, and when you've got your taxpayers in like a half a block line outside, snaking a line outside, rain, sleet, snow, freezing temperatures with their children trying to get into our courthouse, waiting to get into our courthouse, they look like people in a bread line. That doesn't help us. You want to attract business, you don't give back $10. You get out there and remedy something like this. That's unacceptable to me. That's unacceptable to me. I've heard the comment made, just government never gets money back. Well, you give money to government, never gives it back. That's not true. Frankfurt has given it back. New Lenox has given it back. Crestwood has given it back. But instead of doing it the way this county is proposing to do it, they've done it through a rebate of sales tax dollars. And I understand that the current, right now we don't think we can do it in an economic manner. I really don't know because I haven't personally investigated, so I don't know that. I'm not that comfortable with that argument. Were we to do it, I would be, that would be more comfortable for me because this would then be just a 1-year hit. But when we do what we're doing, the way we're doing it here today, the $3 million that we lose will be $3 million we lose next year, ad infinitum at 5. It just goes on every year. $3 million this year, then it'll be total of $6 million next year. In 3 years, it'll be a total of $9 million. That's how we fall behind our ability to make our county the kind of place where businesses want to come. I know we're attracting businesses, but it's a lot of the emphasis is on tax abatements, and I think we would be a leg up in the game to focus on some of our other issues to making ourselves attractive. So I will be a no vote. I would prefer, until we have all of our unfunded liabilities off our books. And until we have a spending plan in place to make the needed improvements, roads, capital projects, IT. You don't fund IT, you could lose more money by the lack of efficiency, the efficiency you lose in not making these upgrades. I just can't go in that direction. If you were $500, you're saving their residential property owner something significant, you might tempt me, but for $10, I don't think that's a wise move. I know a lot of these things can be funded, you'll say, by bonds, but bonds are money you borrow. You pay a lot of fees to issue the bonds, you pay a lot of interest on the bonds. I don't want to give a homeowner $10 back, then turn around and borrow it in the bond market and charge him interest and fees. I just don't think, I'm very, very conservative. And if that unfunded liability is there, even if you want to whittle it down, I don't know. When you whittle it down, then you'll have my support for not putting, obviously you don't need to put so much in there, but we should be putting in there whatever we're supposed to put in there under the current accounting standards. You know, the accounting standards don't make us put the money in that account, but what they do is make us disclose to the public how much we should be putting in there. And if we don't put it all in there, then we have to carry it in our books, show it to the public as an unfunded liability. This budget will raise that unfunded OPEB liability to 14.2. That is not a comfortable level for me. And again, I also wish we were a little more focused on our needs in the capital projects area and the IT area. I think we're being penny wise and pound foolish here. I think it would really help raise the quality of our life for our residents and help us do an even better job of attracting businesses were we to address some of these needs. And I'm not going to let $3 million slip through with my support when my $200,000 homeowner is going to get $10 on it, and Exelon and Exxon are going to get $100,000 out of that. I'm just not comfortable with it, so I will be a no vote this morning.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other questions in this public hearing? Anyone else wishes to ask any questions? Mr. Costa.
Was that the motion, and then was it seconded, or should I make a motion?
No, back to you.
I'll make a motion to close public hearing.
Moved by Mr. Costa, second by Mr. Adamick. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Bellotta? Yes. Adamick? Yes. Howard? Singer?
Yes.
Izzo?
Yes.
Weigel? Drayle? Yes. Hart? Yes. McPhillips? Yes. Costa?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Trainier?
Yes.
Goodson? Yes. Smith?
Yes.
Gould?
Yes.
May?
Yes.
Rozak?
Yes.
Konecki?
Yes.
Zagrozi?
Yes.
Brooks?
Yes.
Stewart?
Yes.
Winfrey?
Yes.
Babbage? Wilhelmy? And Mustis.
21 affirmative.
21 affirmative. We have closed the public hearing on the Will County annual budget. Mr. Costa, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. The first resolution is 11-422. This is an ordinance regarding the annual budget and appropriation ordinance of the County of Will, State of Illinois for the fiscal period beginning December 1, 2011 and ending November 30th, 2012, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Costa, second by Mr. Mayor. Any discussion? Mr. Adamick.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. I know we've been here quite a period of time up to this point. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. First off, I want to thank you and your staff and Mr. Costa and his committee for the work that they did on this budget, and all those who were involved, various different commissioners and county board members, rather. I appreciate the work they did. It's not an easy task. We do this every year. We need a budget to pass so that we can fund government for the next year. We had a committee of the whole meeting last Thursday, and I think the time for many of these discussions were brought out at that point. In fact, I liked the committee of the whole meeting with regards to the budget, so we can iron out any differences or make any modifications and changes. And I think an attempt was done by myself and some of the other board members to bring light to some of those things. Some of the very notions that Ms. Konecki brought forth is not voted against and now is speaking for. It's somewhat aggravating. But nonetheless,
I'm going to vote for this budget so that we can have government move forward. I know it's not exactly what you wanted, Mr. Executive. It's not exactly what I wanted, but I think it's something we'll have to live with and we can live with. I know there's a lot of ifs in this budget, and it's a best guess document when you come right down to it. You're trying to guess what some revenues are and some expenses are, and I think Mr. Rafik does a good job in that. There's going to be a lot of things that we're going to be tossed our way. We've got judges coming to this county. We'll need to provide for those judgeships, and also for our IT and OPEB. We've started to address that. So, and there are other issues I'm sure that will pop up. But in the end, we need a budget to function, and so I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adamick. Ms. Konecki?
Yes, I'm not even a member of the Finance Committee, but I took the time to go to the Finance Committee meetings. My position has been articulated consistently. It's the same. I made these points last year. I made these points earlier this year in the Forest Preserve, and I'm making them here now. And the points I'm making are all in my email to Chairman Costa. This is not new. I don't know where Mr. Adamick has been, or maybe he's been tuning me out, but I have been very consistent. I've been at every meeting. I've been making these points. I just don't pick up support for them. So maybe that's why they're not necessarily reaching his ears. But that's the only reason they're not. It's not that they weren't made.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Singer.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a couple brief comments related to the budget and some comments made even here this morning or afternoon. I think it's important we remember a little bit of recent history. Last year, when the county executive brought forward a budget, it included a property tax increase, and we stopped that and removed that from the budget. That saved our taxpayers from incurring a unnecessary increase in their property taxes. This year, again, a property tax increase was proposed, and again, we've removed that increase. And I'm tired of hearing that small increases won't impact our property owners. Every little bit matters, and enough is enough. After a while, a little bit here and a little bit there becomes a lot of bit. And until we start demonstrating that our budgets move us into the future, and until our budgets demonstrate capacity to meet our capital needs, and until they start demonstrating something more than just getting us through the next 12 months, it's inappropriate to consider any sort of a tax increase. And for that matter, in this economy, when nearly still 10% of the people in this county are unemployed, when our costs of personnel continue to rise, and in my opinion, unnecessarily, as the result of some pretty poor contracts that we've engaged in, we cannot make the argument to our taxpayers and our property owners that they need to pay more. It's inappropriate. So enough's enough. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Ms. Trainier.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am not going to be voting in support of this budget, and I don't believe it meets the financial obligations that the county has. But in particular, I want to correct a statement that was just made. We received information, and unless the committee gave me information that was wrong or misleading, the average priced home, approximately $190,000 per homeowner, with the county executive's budget, the person's property tax would have been lowered by $6.18, not raised, not increased. Those are the numbers that I have in front of me. I have the floor right now. I was courteous to you, Mr. Singer. I would request the same. Thank you.
Mr. Howard.
I'd like to also reply to that remark earlier. I asked that question this morning in our committee meeting or our caucus meeting, and I was told that under the county executive's proposal, for a $190,000 house, that there would have been a reduction of $6.18 to the homeowner, and under this budget that's being presented today, that reduction would be $14.94. So I'd just like to state that on the record, so.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other comments? Ms. May?
I guess I should, we're talking $6, $14. I wanted to thank Mr. Costa, first of all, for allowing us the opportunity to sit in on the Finance Committee meetings and giving us, through most of the meetings, opportunities to participate. And I think it's a good practice, and I wish that we would start this a lot earlier in the year. And I think we can learn a lot by doing that. Kathleen, what I'd like to see is, I want to see, as I said before, additional cuts. And I think to see cuts, you have to spend time in going over the budgets to see if you can do things like that. But all in all, with all this discussion, the difference between the draft budget presented by the executive and the budget that we have before us today, am I right to say it's a difference of $600,000? And that's really not that big of a difference. It's just, is it $600,000? But we did change some priorities and funded the OPEC, like Kathleen stated. But it's I'll say once again, it's not up to the chief elected official to discuss the new courthouse and what we're going to do about that. It's up to this body. It's up to the 27 of us. And so, I like the idea of a meeting of the whole and additional meetings or a workshop to start to look into how we can do those things and how we can possibly agree to how we will fund those. But once again, I wanted to say to you, Mr. Costa, I enjoyed the process. I'd like to maybe have additional meetings if we could do that next year and to work on, moving the process along.
Thank you, Sharon. Any other comments? Madam Clerk, call the roll. Oh, Mr. Wilhelmy, sorry.
I just wanted to end on a positive note. This is a balanced budget. We have kept control of our spending very well, I think. The give and take between the executive's office and the board, I think, was very good in this process. And I just want to give kudos to Melissa and Paul, who did most of the work in getting to this point right now. And this process does take its initiation early on in the summertime. Those of us that want to get involved in it can go see Paul anytime. He starts sending up these budget notices in June. So he'll have very little time after this is over to actually get started on the next budget. So again, I think this county is in good financial shape. I think it's been good to have the interaction between the board and the executive's office, and I think we'll continue to do this. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
I also want to leave this on a positive note in that this is not just a budget in isolation. This budget and the reductions and things that have been going on have been a process that have been going on for 3 years since we've started to deal with some of the financial crises that we have in this country and in this county. And the fact that when we have our folks coming in and telling us about the bonds and the borrowing and the fact that we have a per capita debt of $3 compared to someone like Cook County that's at the 600 and something per capita, I think we're doing an excellent job here. And I agree with my colleague over on the other side. We got a balanced budget. We shouldn't be really. There's always going to be give and take in this environment, and I think we came up with a really good way of coming to some agreements and getting this thing moving forward. The fact that we took $2 million and isolated it into an area for our OPEC, I think, is really good because it's now locked and we can't use it. I would have supported having that $2 million sitting in another kind of contingency fund in case something happened that we would need that $2 million for some reason, because we don't know what our federal government is going to do. I mean, we are not talking about all aspects of retirement. We're talking about one aspect. We're talking about the health care. And with the way the federal government has written this new legislation, and they don't even know exactly how it's going to be done, for us to go in and isolate too much money too quick, I think it's an accounting principle. Okay, is it really something that's going to impact us? We don't know that yet.
Thank you, Chuck. Miss McPhillips.
just have a brief clarification on the 600,000 difference. I believe a lot of that was because we reduced the property tax levy obligation, but adjusted some other non-tax levy revenues, and then also cut, and Melissa can clarify, was it like $2.6 million out of the budget? And then shifted some of that over to OPEB too. So that was the net balance, but it was a lot of that was a property tax reduction on it, and then the increase of other non-property tax revenues.
Thank you.
Second.
Ms. Konecki?
Very briefly, it's a philosophical difference. That's what you can pick out of the discussion taking place. I wince a little bit. I don't want to say that we're that we're financially irresponsible, but I'm simply concerned. I would not be comfortable saying we have a balanced budget, using that particular term, when we're running an unfunded liability on our books. And while we did move some money into OPEB this year, it was only half of what we needed to move into it. We have an unfunded liability on our books in our OPEB account. We must show.
Ms. Konecki.
Okay.
Kathleen. Kathleen, you've made that point 3 times now, okay?
Well, but I'm just contrasting it to an unfunded of the balanced budget
that's
concept.
fine. That's fine. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Bellotta. Adamick. Howard. Singer.
Yes.
Izzo.
Yes.
Weigel.
Yes.
Drayle.
Yes.
Hart.
Yes.
McPhillips.
Yes.
Costa.
Yes.
Mayor.
Oh,
Yes.
wait a minute. Who had a no?
I was a yes into the microphone, and I is a yes.
I got you as a yes.
Just sounded worse because it was through the microphone. Just making sure we're awake today.
Are you stressed out or what?
I actually felt no.
Never mind.
I
Never
got
mind.
yes. I got you as a yes.
TMI.
Okay. Trainer.
This is on call to question, yes.
No. This is voting on. This is voting on Resolution 11-422.
Goodson.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
May. Rozak. Konecki.
No.
Zagrozi. Brooks.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Winfrey. Babbage. Wilhelmie.
You can go now.
And Mustis. Mustis.
Jim? Yes?
Thank you.
Yes.
Just 2 negative.
21 affirmative, 2 negative.
21 affirmative, 2 negative, 422 has passed.
Wait,
Oh.
hold on, clarification, hold on.
23 affirmative, 2 negative.
No. 23 affirmative, 2 negative. It still has passed.
It still pays.
We need a break.
Yeah, we.
Long break.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Mr. Costa.
All right, continuing on, we have the adoption of the 2011 levy resolutions. The first one is 11-423A, the corporate fund levy, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Costa, second by Mr. Bellotta. Any questions? Previous roll call. Moved by Mr. Babbage, second by Mr. Wilhelmie. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary,
Show me as a no.
you are a no. Kathleen and Jackie, you are a yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I got it.
Got that, Lana? Okay, motion is carried.
All right, 11-423B, it's the FICA fund levy, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Costa, second by Mr. Mayor. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Howard, second by Ms. Winfrey. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary?
I'm a yes.
You are
She's a yes.
yes this time? Okay, so unanimous. Motion is carried.
11-423C is the IMRF fund levy, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Costa, second by Mr. Smith. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Trainier, second by Mr. Gould. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary? Motion is carried.
11-423D tort immunity fund, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Weigel. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Adamick, second by Ms. Drayle. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
No on that one, and on the rest of them.
She's no on this one and all the rest. Motion is carried.
11-423E workers' compensation fund, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Costa, second by Mr. Izzo. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yes.
No, that's all right. You don't have to say anything. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Babbage, second by Ms. May. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion carried.
11-423F, a TB sanitarium fund, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Ms. Goodson. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Adamick, second by Ms. Winfrey. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
11-423G, Health Department fund levy, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Gould. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Brooks, second by Mr. Trenier. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
11-423H, Highway Fund, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Bustos. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Adamick. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
11-423I, County Bridge Fund, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Bellotta. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Mr. Babbage, second by Mr. Gould. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
11-423J, Federal Aid Matching Fund, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Weigel. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Trail, second by Ms. Hart. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Last, 11-423K, the Public Building Commission, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Smith. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Babbage, second by Mr. Gould. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
I feel like there's a Saturday Night Live skit somewhere in this meeting today. Yeah. Between we'll move on. I would also like to quickly thank Melissa for your hard work with this budget. You're godsend to the county board. So thank you so much. Bruce, Karen, Beth, same thing. Thank you for your efforts. And Paul and Karen, you guys did a great job. We actually moved this budget through a lot earlier than the last year, maybe previous years. So I want to thank the county board members that participated, for the other county board members that showed up and gave comments. I do appreciate it. I am learning as a chairman. It's not always the easiest thing to run a meeting where you have to come up with a budget. There's a two-headed monster in the room that we're trying to appease and come to a resolution. And I applaud you in this room for doing that and for coming together and giving the residents of Will County a properly, responsibly balanced budget. So thank you. Hats off to you guys. Next, I have Resolution 11-424, resolution authorizing the county executive to execute necessary documents for delinquent tax program, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Gould. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Adamick, second by Ms. May. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, Ms. Kathleen, would you like to be a yes?
Be a yes.
Yeah, yes. Motion is carried.
11-425 is a resolution of intent to abate certain property taxes for Illinois Transport Incorporated. I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Ms. Rozak. Any questions? Ms. Konecki.
Yes, I'm going to continue the practice I've been operating under for some time now, of being a no vote to the abatement of property taxes. At the last county board meeting, I asked for an audit, an outside audit. What we received instead was a review from Mr. Grueling. I personally feel that he's too close to the process to be, I don't think he should be the one doing the audit. I don't even think what he did really is an audit. There's two things I was looking for: whether or not the abatements we've given to date have generated the jobs we were promised. All Mr. Grueling did was take a survey, and it's just self-reported jobs from the businesses which have received the abatements. I don't think that's adequate. An auditor comes in and he spot checks. He checks himself to make sure that the recipient is actually, being accurate, fully accurate. Self-reporting doesn't cut the mustard with me. The other thing is he gave us absolutely no data on whether or not, when we've given the tax abatements, we've gotten the degree of EAV, that would be basically the property improvements that we were promised. So I still call for an outside audit on this. Absent that, I will continue to be a no vote on these abatements. And if an audit were done, I believe we need, I just believe we need procedures in place. We don't even know how to track these things right now. There was some discussion in committee of requiring them to submit a certified payroll records, whatever, but until that procedure is in place and we are doing this and we have a handle on how effective, not effective, but whether or not we've gotten the benefit of our bargain on prior tax abatements, I will continue to be a no as a matter of driving my point that we need to be making sure that what we're promised is what we're receiving for our taxpayers.
Mr. Gould?
Executive, this particular resolution is an abatement portion for Will County of $3,381, but it's 65 new jobs in Wilmington, and the City of Wilmington's in favor of this, so I'd urge that we approve it.
Thank you, Mr. Gould. Mr. Singer, did you have your hand up? No. My question to you, Kathleen, who will you propose pays for this gigantic audit of all these businesses that we have given a tax abatement to?
Sorry. I put it out for a request for proposal. So if you think I'm trying to throw the business to...
I mean, who's going to pay for it? You expect the county? You want the county to pay for going into these businesses and finding out exactly...
But what you don't... Well, they don't do every business. They will spot check. They will do a statistically valid. They will decide how many they need to spot check. I think you need to look... Mr. Walsh, I think we need to look into it. Otherwise, we come on the floor this morning and we're promised 65 new jobs. I mean, that's wonderful. How do you think I feel voting against 65 new jobs? But I've had these abatement requests in front of me before, but I never know if we get the 65 new jobs. I'm not against 65 new jobs. Good heavens. I'd like 65 new jobs. I'd like them to be good-paying jobs with good benefits and full-time jobs. I just don't know that we've been... When this leaves our county board floor, I never hear about this stuff again, and I don't know.
Let me make a suggestion to you. Make an appointment to sit down with John Gruhl and Janet Scott at the CED's office after the meeting, and you sit there and ask all the questions and meet with them to get their perspective, because we, the county board, I should say, have basically instructed John Gruhling to do what we set up as criteria to justify whether a company coming in here that's going to create jobs, what it's going to bring, and total participation, just as Mr. Gould has said, that whether they justify having some property tax relief for 3, maybe 5 years. And everything that he has done, he puts together and brings to us as a report that shows where he justified authorizing what he did. So my suggestion to you is to do that. Mr. Mustis, you had a comment?
Can I respond to your suggestion?
I was just going to say, these discussions have taken place, Mr. Executive. We have talked to John Gruhling at the CED. We have talked about other methods of doing follow-up, do some annual reporting. We're working on that currently. And so it is something the board has discussed and it is taking up, as I know you are in your office.
Yes.
So we will do some of the efforts of seeing the results of the abatements.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Konecki?
And depending on the success, how we go about this, I may be able to support future abatements. I'm trying to make a point and drive a policy here.
You made your point very well.
To your comments, what I would say is, I understand you have the criteria in place to guide Mr. Gruhling, and when we grant these,
it was criteria drafted by you, the county board.
Can I have the floor, please? But what you don't have in place...
You've had it all morning.
I know you haven't liked my comments on any of the issues, but I'm going to keep... I will make them, anyhow. You have the criteria under which to grant them. You made that point. You are correct, but you don't have any criteria under which to evaluate whether or not the promises were made under those criteria are promises that are then delivered on. That's my concern. I would be happy to sit down with Mr. Gruhling. Did he have the information I'm seeking? He does not. He knows that the businesses that said they'd give us 65 jobs turn around and tell him, oh yeah, we did it. I don't want that. I want something more objective.
Well, you meet with him and you tell him what you want.
He doesn't have the information, sir.
Okay.
And I'm not an auditor. You cannot...
Any more discussion on Resolution 11-425? We have a second. Motion to previous roll call by Mr. Wilhelmie, second by Mr. Stewart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Ms. Conakry is a no. Motion is carried. Go ahead, Mr.
I forgot it was me that we're still under finance. I forgot. I'm sorry. Trying to find my place in the budget. Or in the
426.
Yeah, okay. 11426 is the resolution designating Providence Bank as county depository. I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Ms. Trainier. Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. May. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried. Ms. Conakry, would you like to be a yes? So Ms. Conakry is a yes.
11-427, a resolution designating UBS as a county depository. I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Mayor. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Babbage, second by Ms. May. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
11-428, this is a resolution designating New Century Federal Credit Union as a county depository. I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Ms. McPhillips. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. L, second by Ms. Hart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
11-429, this is a resolution amending Resolution 11-250, adopting the Will County 2011 Action Plan for the Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership Grant Programs, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Gould. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Hart, second by Mr. Weigel. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
11-430 is a resolution authorizing the amendment of budgets to reflect correct allocations of salaries to CDBG, home, and NSP grant programs, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Brooks. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Adamick. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
11-431, a resolution approving the commitment of fund balances pursuant to GASB 54, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Mayor. Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Goodson, second by Ms. Hart. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
11-432, a resolution authorizing contribution of other post-employment benefits, OPEB fund, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Costa, second by Ms. Trainier. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Howard. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
I'd like to make an informal motion that me and Tom can't present reports next meeting. Thank you. Have a great week.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. Public Works Transportation Committee, Mr. Bellata, Chairman.
Good afternoon, everybody. Try to get through this quickly. First is 11, that's 433. This is setting the salary for the county engineer. It's an annual thing we have to do for his salary December 1st of 2011, November 30th of 2012, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Mr. Adamick. Any discussion? Previous roll by Mr. Zagrosi, second by Mr. Howard. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next, 11, 434. This is award of contract to P.T. Farrell for work on DeZelm Road from Route 102 to close to Old Chicago Road, and I so moved.
Moved by Mr. Bellata, second by Ms. Rozak. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Gould, second by Ms. May. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
11, 435. This is a supplemental agreement for engineering services with Hutchinson Engineering. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Stewart. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Brooks, second by Ms. Rozak. All in favor by signifying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
11-436. This is agreement between Will County and Towpath Joint Venture for the purchase of wetland banking site credits for 95th Street. And I so move.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Ms. May. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next, 11-437. This is additional professional services with STV Incorporated for intersection at Cedar and Laraway Road, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Gould. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Mayor, second by Mr. Weigel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next, 11-438. This is additional professional services for Phase 1 work with AECom for work on Bell Road between 159th and 131st Street, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Ms. Winfrey. Previous roll by Ms. Conakry, second by Ms. Rozak. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
11-439. This is authorized the state's attorney to proceed with condemnation. This is for the Weber and Renwick Road. This is definitely life safety improvement for intersections improvements, signalization, and free flow of traffic, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Custis, second by Mr. Adamick. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Babish, second by Ms. Trail. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next, 11-440. This is supplemental agreement for engineering services
sorry.
Phase 2 with Will Hoffman for bridge work at Pauline Goodnow Road over Plum Creek, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Bellotta, second by Ms. May. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Stewart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Jim. Moving on, Judicial Committee, Ms. Trail, Chairperson.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, good afternoon. I have only one item for business, and I would like to place on file the recent inspection report from the Illinois Department of Correction. The Illinois compiled statutes requires that the Department of Correction inspect our counties on an annual basis and make the results available to the public. The Will County ADF was in total compliance with the Illinois jail standards, and there are no recommended improvements. I believe that both Sheriff Kopis and our warden, Michael O'Leary, as well as the ADF staff, are to be commended for their outstanding remarks that were received from the Illinois DLC. So with those comments, I move to place that report on file.
Moved by Mr. Trail, second by Ms. Hart. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
And sometimes as committee chair, you do get to do some things out of the ordinary. Don't look so sad, Larry. You know? Lee Goodson and I have two items that we would like to show you and to pass around. Ms. Goodson has
rocks.
Two rocks, but Ms. Goodson has termed what you see, the glistening material, as Will County diamonds. In reality, it's really, no, it is calcimite. And Lee's got one, I have one. And I just think this is a really interesting side point as being county board members. This Monday, Lee and I had the opportunity. Don't pick that off, Chuck. I super glued it on this morning. Don't do that. This Monday, Lee Goodson and I had what I consider a really unique opportunity with all of the discussions that's gone about the construction, demolition debris, and uncontaminated soil, and the 11 quarries that we have in Will County, the 9 active. We arranged for a tour of a local facility that had a closed landfill, a composting facility, a quarry that was taking construction, demolition debris, and also a underground mining operation. We both felt that we had the nerve to go 450 feet below, and we did. The instructions that were received were quite amazing. We were given, obviously, safety instructions. We were given a air unit that we had to breathe into should something go wrong underground. We had yellow vests, we had safety goggles, and we also had a round metal, a copper tag that we had to stick in our pocket. What was interesting is that the tag number correlated to our names on a clipboard that was above ground as we went under. I think it could have been for maybe identification later. The important thing about the tour when we went 450 feet below ground was that they did tell us they would keep the lights on. And I can't tell you how unbelievably dark it is. Did I have trepidations about going underground? Sure. Lee and I held hands all the way. We sat in the back seat, and we didn't. But, we were concerned. Lee said she was hyperventilating, and I pretended to be very brave. I guess the point in telling all of this is we have so many issues that come before us as county board members, and when somebody talks about a construction demolition fill, or they talk about quarries, or they talk about mining operations, and we're looking at issues that affect us and affect the votes that we're going to be taking, I think it's imperative and important to be educated. I can't explain really what it's like to go 450 feet underground and to see 50-foot wide stone pillars that are supporting the ceiling. And some of these pillars were, 190 feet high, to look at where they store the dynamite, to look at the ventilation systems, the escape routes coming out of a quarry, to look at how they move stormwater out of a inactive quarry through, the mechanics of pumping. If you have the opportunity, please try and arrange a tour of any of the mining operations that we have in the county. I know that Lee and I would be more than willing to help you make phone calls. I think we both can promise that's a really exceptional trip. You may be scared, but you certainly won't be disappointed. So this is a great rock. I don't know, Lee, do you have any comments? I was scared.
I just wanted to say that the gentleman that took us on this tour encouraged us to encourage all of you to set up appointments and do the same tour, because it was fascinating. It was interesting to see that when we were 450 feet below the surface, it was dry. There was not water. And I thought that was an important point for me. I thought there would be a pool down there, and it was very dry. And they do dewater, but they're located right next to the river, and it was very dry. So anybody that's looking for a new career, they said it's a great work environment. The weather is always even. So, but that was really the point, is that we wanted to encourage anybody that has an interest to do this to go ahead and set up an appointment, because these guys certainly did enjoy taking us around.
And it's an amazing opportunity. That's it. Thank you very much. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you very much, Ann. Next up is the Legislative and Policy Committee, Ms. Goodson, Chairperson.
Public Health.
Oh, I forgot Don Gould. Wait a minute. Yeah, we do. There we go. Sorry, Don. Next is Public Health and Safety Committee, Don Gould, Chairman.
Everyone, 2 resolutions for your consideration. I have 11-441, a resolution renewing contracts for medical products at Sunny Hill, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Gould, second by Ms. Brozak. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Stewart, second by Mr. Wilhelmy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Resolution 11-442, a resolution renewing contracts for miscellaneous paper products at Sunny Hill, and I move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Gould, second by Ms. May. Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. McPhillips, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Don. Now we go to the Legislative and Policy Committee. Ms. Goodson, Chairperson.
Thank you. I can be brief because the legislature just wrapped up veto session and they got very little work accomplished, so there's not much to report on. The one thing that they did do is they did pass the Senate Bill 2147, which involved the regional superintendent of schools' salaries. They did support a 1-year diversion from the local personal property tax replacement tax to pay for the salaries. But they also amended this legislation to include a creation of a task force to look at the office and make recommendations to streamline it, possibly a merger with another office, and also to possibly do away with it, to close the office. And they are to report back to the legislature in 1 year, and I guess we'll wait and see how that all comes out. They will be called back briefly on November 29th to take up some work that was not completed during veto session. This special session is just to look at the tax abatement, or I'm sorry, tax decrease for the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and the Chicago Board of Trade, and it's possible that they could take up some other work during this special session. It is supposed to go only 1 day. I guess we'll have to wait and see if that in fact happens. Other than that, that completes my report.
Thank you very much, Leanne. Next, on to Capital Improvements Committee, Mr. Mayor, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. I have nothing official to report. We provided all that time to Mr. Costa and the Finance Committee, and I really do appreciate all the hard work that everybody's been doing here. I do want to say that after being on this board for over 8 years, a lot of you have lost a lot of close members, family members, friends, and stuff. I've lost a very close friend of mine this week, and we've had some really good debate here today. But without our family and friends, none of this really matters. And so I think we really need to keep in perspective what it is that we're trying to accomplish here. The whole goal, I think, of everybody on this board is to make sure that we provide the best environment for the citizens of our county. And I think we do that. We might not come at it the same way, but there's a lot of roads leading in and out of Will County. And with all those different roads comes a lot of different opinions. And I just want to say that I hope that everybody has a really great Thanksgiving. That to also remind folks that this is Veteran Appreciation Month, that I don't think there's no other county around here that I'm aware of or other government body has put a resolution out there recognizing November as the month of the veteran. And we did that a couple of years ago, so I want to make sure that we remember these resolutions that we pass as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Next, we move on to Executive Committee. Mr. Mustis, Chairman.
Good afternoon, Mr. Executive and County Board. My first motion today would be to remove resolutions 1143, 1144, and 1145. These will come back. Not all the agreements were completed. It's a little bit out of our control, so I'll make that motion to remove those items.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Konecki. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Adamick, second by Mr. Stewart. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next resolution, 446, replacement hires for Sunny Hill. I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Rozak. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Wilhelmy, second by Ms. May. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Resolution 447, extension of term of the Board of Review. I'll move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Smith. Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. McPhillips, second by Ms. Hart. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
Next, we have Resolution 448, a resolution authorizing standard software maintenance agreement with New World Systems. I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. May. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Howard, second by Ms. Trenier. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Resolution 449, resolution declaring various equipment surplus and authorizing recycle/disposal. I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Mr. Adamick. Any questions? Previous roll call by Mr. Mayor, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Resolution 450, a resolution renewing contracts for refuge and recycling collection for various county buildings. I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Goodson. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Weigel. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
451, regarding aggregation of residential and small commercial retail electric loads. I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Mustis, second by Ms. Trenier. Previous roll by Ms. Konecki, second by Ms. Winfrey. All in favor signify by saying. Oh, I'm sorry. Second by Mr. Stewart then. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, and you want to be a abstain. Okay, thank you. Denise?
Next.
Motion is carried. Go ahead.
Right. Okay. Next, I have appointments by the county executive. I will move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Musser, second by Mr. Adamick. Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Babbage, second by Mr. Wilhelmy. All in favor signify by saying aye. Motion is carried.
And that concludes my business for today, Mr. Executive.
Well, you want to be a yes on the last one, Denise? Yes, okay. Thank you. Now, on to announcements. County Board Chairman, Mr. Mustis.
I'll make a couple comments. First, let me make comments about the budget and the budget process. You know, for those of you who may have not been through this a number of times, we did pretty good this year. I thought it was a pretty good process. We brought it along in a timely fashion. And one of the things I believe that makes it easier for us is there's no real extreme positions. Which makes it easier, I think, come to that middle and come to consensus. The consensus is just that, it's consensus. Nobody's ever happy. I'm sure there would be people here that would have liked to cut the budget even more, and I'm sure there was people who would like to increase services or fund services more. But in the end, we, I believe, do what we all feel is best for the citizens of this county, both from a tax perspective and from a service and budgeting perspective. Yeah, I was a little nostalgic for me here today, and I'll tell you why. You know, the first 10 years I was on the budget, land use report probably always took at least an hour because we had a lot of zoning cases going on back then. So that report would go on for an hour, hour and a half, and Judy Breadaway, the finance chairman, felt compelled to take up at least an hour. So we wouldn't get out of their reports until the noontime, so it was a little nostalgic. And then we added Ann's report, reminded me of grammar school, how I spent my summer vacation. So it's a little nostalgic today. There is one other thing I'm going to bring up, I think of a more serious nature. I can see frustration on how sometimes the meetings go on, how long comments may be made. We do have rules. And I'm going to ask leadership to go over those rules. Mr. Executive will be talking with you also, because I do, and we will give everybody the county board rules on how the meetings are supposed to be run. And we'll ask the county executive to make sure he adheres to those rules. So you'll understand it's the board asking the executive to adhere to those rules. But there's limitations on comment, how long you can comment, how many times you can comment on an issue. And I think we probably need to remind everybody what those rules are and make it a little easier for our county executive to make sure that those rules are being adhered to. So we will be doing that going forward. We're coming up to what I like to say is my favorite holiday, Thanksgiving, because the only expectation is that we all sit down and have a good meal. But I also want to remind everybody on this board, as everyone here knows, I'm the supervisor of Frankfort Township, a township that's considered probably somewhat affluent. But we also run a food pantry. And when you sit in that food pantry, you'll find that people who once were doing very well aren't doing so well today. We are in Frankfort Township are supplying 150 turkeys with all the trimmings so people can have a nice Thanksgiving, sit down and have a regular Thanksgiving meal. I'd like to ask the board to think about all those folks. If you got a few extra bucks, go to your local pantry, donate a turkey, donate the whole meal. But think about those folks that, at least we can try to make things a little better for them on the holidays because they do struggle every day of the week. And we're really talking more about kids. I mean, it's not the people, people in my area, it takes them a long time to stick their pride in their hip pocket and show up and say, can you help me? So even folks that you may know who need a little help, hey, look, there's nothing wrong with dropping a turkey off on the doorstep for them. Or just giving a call or inviting them over and saying, what are you doing in our family tonight for this great holiday? So think about those folks, because there is more of a need than we've seen, at least I've seen, in a long time. And then I think about those areas that aren't as fortunate as Frankfort Township, where they're having even a tougher time. So you can also help others outside of your area. It doesn't hurt, So everyone have a great Thanksgiving. I appreciate all the hard work you do. County board staff, I know it's been a little tense the last month or so. Thanks for all your work. I'll even thank you, Bruce. because we usually skip Bruce. You never notice, we just skip over Bruce. But I'll thank Bruce. He doesn't need thanks. He knows he's doing a good job. Melissa, you're super. Couldn't do it without you. Everyone have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you, Mr. Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next, the Leanne Goodson, would you like to make a comment as whip of the Republican Party?
Jim had to leave.
I'll just take the opportunity to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving and the beginning of this holiday season. I hope that we all have an opportunity to help those that aren't able to enjoy these holidays as much as we are.
Thank you. Very nice. And Mr. Adamick, the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Executive and fellow board members. Good afternoon. First off, congratulations to David Izzo from County Board District 2. I look forward to working with you and all the members, of course, on this board, as I have in the past and will continue to do. With regards to the budget, I think, like Mr. Moose has said, it's, not everybody's happy, but I think I stated my comments earlier, so I'm going to leave it at that, seeing that it's such a long day. Happy Thanksgiving to all. Without family, friends, and neighbors, how life would be so dull and boring, and without family, your friends and neighbors, and your health. We have much to be grateful for, so I wish all here a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wally, and I wish to offer my best wishes for a happy Thanksgiving and a great holiday season coming up. The board will be standing at recess till Thursday, December 15th, 2011.